Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Fantasy. Confess to the villain Empress at the start of Rebirth. Chapter 81. Cold and didn't leave. She has been watching everything happening in the Heavenly Dome Hall from above. And the reason she didn't leave, it is to ensure the safety of Ling Tien. She was afraid that the woman from the Shinto temple would go and come back and target Ling Tien. But what she didn't expect was a night that should have been boring. She actually heard such a heart-wrenching shout tune. At this moment, she was a little grateful for her decision to stay. Because even she has to admit, for a while, because of this song, her heart was surging, and she really experienced the so-called feeling of difficulty. This guy, it's pretty good. The corner of Lengen's mouth lifted up a faint smile and groaned slightly. After that, she turned into a ray of white moonlight and disappeared into the night. At this moment, she has confirmed. That person is far away from Wu. As for the rest, she believes Ling Tien can handle it well. Therefore, she has no need to stay. The lens shifted back to the Palace of Heaven. Quite a lot of people are so distressed that they can't get out of the Xiaoku played by Ling Tien. Their mood is a bit complicated by this flute song. One piece of music can make them feel the sweetness of the heart and the heart, the unspeakable pain of the heart, the ultimate shame, and the unspeakable feeling of helplessness intertwined with all kinds of emotions. I have to say, the Xiaoyan played by Ling Tien just now is truly amazing. Ling Yao asked with a trembling voice. Does this song have a name? Hearing this, everyone looked at Ling Tien together. They are also about to ask this question, such a shocking voice should have a matching name. Ling Tien turned his head, with a gentle smile on his face. Myth, a beautiful myth. Hearing this, Ling Yao's eyes shook, and she whispered like a dream. A love that travels through time and space. It really deserves to be a beautiful myth. After that, she looked at Ling Tien blankly. A pair of beautiful eyes gradually blurred. This myth brought her a lot of shock and feelings. She has memorized every note of this myth. This is to remind her that maybe she should be more brave when facing the person she likes. She doesn't want to wait for 1,000 years. Experience the torment of being distressed day and night. And everyone nodded, gradually calming down the complex emotions in their hearts. The victory is divided. The song played by Prince Ling Tien is supposed to be far better than Prince Mu Chen. Yes, these two Xiao Yin songs are no longer above the same level at all. I have to say, young Master Ling Tien is really a genius. This myth will surely be exiled for hundreds of generations. Jun Xiaoyao looked at the situation on this side, his expression remained unchanged. Because when Ling Tien played the first note, he already knows that the outcome is divided. Although Ling Tien is his mortal, but he also had to admit Ling Tien's amazing world. Even he was lost for a while because of the Xiaoyan that travels through time and space and penetrates people's hearts and souls. Prince Mu Chen, do you have any doubts about the outcome of this duel? Martial Emperor asked Mu Chen. Hearing this, Mu Chen's brows at the moment have been frowned into a word of Yichuan. At the moment, there is no more elegance on his face, full of gloom. If it's an ordinary Xiaoyan duel, then he doesn't care at all. But now, he can't bear the result of losing at all. After all, he came to this monarch martial god country all the way for Ling Yao. Ling Tien looked at the silent Mu Chen with an ugly expression. He smiled slightly. He knew that he should also force the prince to give him a hand. Let's go, Sister Ling Yao. Ling Tien gently took Ling Yao's hand and wanted to walk out of the Sky Palace. The Yi Zi on the side also stood up and followed behind them. Mu Chen looked at Ling Yao's back gradually away. A heart is trembling sharply. You must know that the woman he fell in love with hasn't escaped her palm yet. And many more. Mu Chen suddenly spoke, and stopped Ling Tien's footsteps of leaving. How, His Royal Highness, is there anything else? Ling Tien turned around and quietly looked at Mu Chen and asked. No one noticed a faint cold light flashing under his eyes. Ha ha, Mu Chen smiled and then said. Young Master Ling Tien. Mu Chen admires, but what this prince wants to tell you is. Ling Yao Miss is the most beloved person in this prince's life. If so, Miss Ling Yao will not return to the Feathering Empire with this prince. The consequences may be serious. The voice falls. The audience was in an uproar. The feathered prince lost the duel. I plan to be hard. Ling Yao said with a cold face. Don't you think that my Lord Martial God is really afraid of your feathering dynasty? If you still want to go to war, Ling Yao and Shen's Junfu will accompany you to the end. Humph. Mu Chen snorted and said. Restart the war. I don't have to be afraid of Feathering Empire anymore. However, before the war, the prince asked Ling Yao Miss to think clearly. Where is your 800,000 gods army now? Ling Yao frowned slightly when she heard the words. Then she seemed to think of something. Her pretty face wrinkled and she whispered to herself. Junwu 10 cities. More than a year, she led the army of Shens to regain the 10 cities of Junwu. During the peace talks, she naturally ordered the Shens army to deploy the army in 10 cities just in case. Mu Chen continued with a playful smile on his face. Then do you know what's in the underground of this Junwu 10 city? Upon hearing this, Ling Yao had a bad premonition in her heart. Ha 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 ha. Mu Chen looked at Ling Yao's slightly chaotic expression and couldn't help laughing out loud. Tell you the truth, there are 10 profound formations underground in the 10 cities of Junwu. Do you think, why did my Feather Empire dare to ask your Lord Martial God for 1.2 billion purple profound crystals for battle damage? This is because as long as this prince gives an order, it only takes half a quarter of an hour to make 10 profound formations self-destruct and explode. The 10 cities of Junwu and your army of 800,000 gods will be wiped out in an instant. The arrogant laughter resounded throughout the sky hall. The faces of everyone present suddenly turned pale. They never expected that the Feathered Empire would still have this hand. Asshole. Ling Yao's beautiful eyes were red, and she roared out loud. The Holy Lord's cultivation base in the 7 realms is full of riots. Shen's army is the foundation of the entire Shen's army mansion. It's her life. As early as after she entered the Shen's military mansion at the age of 10. She vowed to protect the God Sejin house forever. But now, the foundation of the Shen's military mansion is held in the palm of the hand by this person. How? Ling Yao Miss wants to kill me. Ha 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 ha. Mu Chen laughed 3 times with a disdainful face and then said. This prince should advise you to understand the consequences before you do it. Now you have 2 choices. First, follow this prince back to the Feathering Dynasty and be my prince. Second, you watched the 800,000 divine strategy army with your own eyes, and the ashes were wiped out. Ling Yao heard this, her heart was won. Tears poured out from his eyes. And at this moment, Ling Tien, who had been silent all the time, stood in front of her. Ling Yao lowered her head and dared not look at Ling Tien's face. Shell teeth clenched her silver teeth tightly. She seemed to have made a decision and then said. Sorry, Sister Ling Yao is not good. It's because I didn't protect the Shen's military mansion. I will make up. The Shen's army cannot be destroyed just like that. Therefore, she would rather sacrifice herself. And at this moment, Ling Tien didn't speak, just gently raised his hand to pick up the crystal tears on Ling Yao's peerless nightmare. Ling Yao is not allowed to say such things anymore. Next, will I take care of it? Heard an extremely gentle voice. Ling Yao raised her head blankly. I only saw Ling Tien's handsome face with a gentle and warm smile. All of a sudden, the fear and collapse in her heart dissipated. She looked at her little brother. No, looking at this man. She actually felt safe and peaceful in her heart like never before. Ling Tien slowly turned around to face Mu Chen. The moment he turned around, the smile on his face turned into the ice on the top of the snow mountain. Just now, he has not spoken. That's because he opened the system store to select the props he will use next. No, it's not a prop, it should be a torture device. The kind of torture that can make life worse than death. It's just a pity that the instruments of torture found in the system mall are too benevolent. But, although the props are not, he found a skill. 100,000 destiny value burning soul mark of death. This skill is the most terrifying torture skill in the Cthulhu universe, there is no one. How? Young Master Ling Tien has something to say. Mu Chen looked at Ling Tien provocatively with a faint smile. At this moment, he doesn't care how powerful Ling Tien is. As long as he sends a signal to the Feather Dynasty behind him. Then the 10 cities of Junwu and the 800,000 army of Shens will be wiped out. He never believed that Ling Tien dared to move him. Ha ha, Ling Tien smiled, only to see a ray of starlight flashing between his eyebrows. Zheng, The reverse star samsara seal is on. Mysterious reversal. A world-defying fairy light suddenly flashed in his eyes. Jung, his figure shook, and instantly flashed in front of Yu Mochen. Without a word, he raised his hand and directly pinched Yu Mochen's throat. How does young master Ling Tien want to kill me? Yu Mochen was pinched by Ling Tien, but he didn't panic or resist. Instead, he opened his way with sarcasm. Young master Ling Tien shouldn't be so stupid. Do you think this prince died in the kingdom of martial god? The soul crystal is broken, then your Junwu 10 kingdoms and the 800,000 divine strategy army are going to be destroyed the same. So this prince bet you don't dare to kill me. Ling Tien looked like an abyss, shook his head and the corner of his mouth raised a cruel arc. Kill you? Do you think it's too beautiful? What do you mean? Yu Mochen looked at the smile on Ling Tien's face. For some reason, he suddenly felt chills all over his body. I mean, you will immediately beg me to kill you. After that, a golden light flashed in Ling Tien's eyes. After that, his hand holding Yu Mochen shining with a very rich golden light. Jin Meng quickly got out of his palm like a soul, and instantly transferred to Yu Mochen's body. In an instant, Yu Mochen's neck was at the center, and a thin gold thread quickly radiated his whole body. In just a few breaths, it spread to Yu Mochen's whole body, and thousands of fine gold patterns were printed on his whole body. The golden streamer flickered, and it was clearly visible across the coat. After all this, today, he released the hand pinched on Yu Mochen's neck and let him fall to the ground. You, what did you do to me? Yu Mochen looked at Ling Tien in horror and asked. Just now, he could feel countless sharp needles piercing each of his meridians and blood vessels. Hearing this, Ling Tien looked down at him indifferently and then spoke. His Royal Highness, have you ever experienced what life is better than death? After all, Yu Mochen hadn't had time to react. I saw a magical golden glow in Ling Tien's eyes. At the same time, Yu Mochen's whole body showed a fine, jiao golden texture. Forehead. Yu Mochen's body stiffened and his throat rolled and made a syllable. Then everyone saw his eyes protruding. The whole body began to tremble violently and it became more and more contorted. When the golden texture shines brighter and brighter. At this moment, Yu Mochen felt that his body was pierced by 10,000 arrows in an instant. What is even more terrifying is that he feels the depths of own soul being pierced mercilessly by countless sharp steel needles. Ah! The heart-piercing scream of Yu Mochen, the Prince Yuhuan, resounded in the entire Tianqi temple. Everyone listened to the screams of this Prince Yuha who was still forced to marry. Look at his shivering and twisted body shivering on the ground like a bug. Everyone can't help swallowing. They looked pale and horrified thinking. How much pain did the feathered prince endure to make such a screaming scream? At this moment, only Yu Mochen himself clearly perceives. His soul seemed to have been cut by thousands of sharp blades, and his heart was torn apart fiercely. The whole person seems to have fallen into an endless abyss, being eaten by thousands of ghosts. Ling Tien, what the hell did you do to him? At this moment, Zhun Xiaoyao's voice is full of horror. He thinks he has seen a lot of the world. But torturing a person like this, he still only saw him in his life. He just finished speaking. I only heard a hoarse and extremely trembling voice. Kill me. Please kill me. There is only one thought in Yu Mochen's heart at this moment. That is death. After saying this, the extreme pain overwhelmed his senses again. Ah! That screaming roar resounded through the heavenly dome hall again. Diddy! Yu Mochen roared and left shocking tears in his eyes. The extreme pain caused by burning soul's addiction caused Yu Mochen's consciousness to collapse dozens of times. According to common sense, a cultivator will faint even if he does not die after undergoing such pain. However, there is a power in Yu Mochen's soul that can keep him awake all the time. As long as his consciousness plunges into darkness, he will be immediately revived by this power and awakened. And at this moment, Zheng, a divine light swept in from outside the palace. This is an old man in linen. With his appearance, many people recognized him. This old man in sackcloth is the great master Qingmo, the protector of the feathered empire. His strength has reached the terrifying peak of Junzan. Everyone did not expect that he would secretly follow Yu Mochen to the kingdom of martial god. Only then did they remember why Yu Mochen looked confident when facing Ling Tien again. 1. He is sure that he holds the life of the 800,000 army of gods in his hand. Ling Tien dare not kill him. 2nd, he knew that Great Master Qingmo was also in Wudu, and with the protection of Qingmo, Ling Tien couldn't kill him. Yu Mochen was indeed right. Ling Tien did not intend to kill him. However, Ling Tien's methods are thousands of times more terrifying than him. Qingmo watched as she fell to the ground and rolled over in pain, her body convulsed. And Yu Mochen, who was left with blood and tears, roared with unstoppable rage. Ling Tien, what did you do to His Royal Highness? Ha ha. Ling Tien glanced at Qingmo and then said. Didn't my son say that? If you want him to survive, ask to die. People can't speak without words. You. Green ink for a while. He looked down at every organ on a face that was pale as paper. Every muscle was in a tight or even twisted state. Yu Mochen. He couldn't hold back the fire in his heart, and wanted to take action to kill Ling Tien. But reason told him that he must not do that, because as long as he dares to move Ling Tien, neither he nor Yu Mochen can get out of this martial capital. Call. He took a deep breath and spoke as calmly as possible. Young Master Ling Tien, please also raise your hand to let go of my prince. As long as your request, I will certainly answer it. Ha ha. Ling Tien smiled and then the golden light flashed in her eyes. The golden texture all over Yu Mochen's body surface was gradually buried in the skin. At this moment, Yu Mochen's screams finally stopped. He fell to the ground, breathing heavily, staring blankly at the dome as if he had lost his soul. Qingmo walked in and squatted down and was about to lift up Yu Mochen, who fell to the ground like mud. But when I heard it, Yu Mochen repeated in a weak voice in a low voice. Kill me, please kill me. After hearing this, Qingmo sighed. Then he pulled him up forcibly. And the moment when Yu Mochen's eyes touched Ling Tien. What? He screamed, his legs softened and he sat on the ground. Biff. Not only that, but also constantly moving backwards. At this moment, in his eyes, Ling Tien is the devil. The experience just now has carved a permanent imprint in the depths of his soul. And Ling Tien is the Black Hand who branded his mark. If he could, he would never want to see Ling Tien again for the rest of his life. His Royal Highness, how do you feel? Ling Tien smiled and looked at Yu Mochen, who was sitting on the ground with a face full of horror, and said. Yu Mochen rolled his throat. There was no trace of blood on his face, and he couldn't say a word. There is no arrogance that threatened Ling Yao to marry him just now. What the hell did you do to him? Qingmo stood up and asked in a cold voice. Ha ha. Ling Tien smiled and then spoke. In fact, it's nothing. It's just that a curse was planted in the depths of his soul. As long as this young man wants to, then he can let Yu Mochen experience the feeling of being strong every day in his future. The voice fell. Everyone present was shocked. This is too cruel. And Yi Ziwan took Ling Yao's arm and said. Ling Tien did a good job. Just now Yu Mochen threatened Ling Yao to marry him with the lives of 800,000 soldiers. Yi Ziwan can't wait to kill him with a sword. After all, Yi Zi asked Ling Yao in a low voice. Sister Ling Yao, are you out of breath? Ling Yao smiled softly at her. To be honest, the Qi was relieved just now. But Ling Tien's methods scared her a bit. She has been on the battlefield for so many years, and has seen a sea of corpses and blood. However, I have never seen a person tortured like this. Call. Qingmo slowly exhaled a murky breath, calmed his mood, and then asked Ling Tien. Young Master Ling Tien, make a condition. How can you get rid of the mark on His Royal Highness? Ha ha ha. Ling Tien smiled and then glanced at Yu Mochen, whose body was still trembling again, and said. Actually, I am a good talker. If you want me to unlock the curse of your prince, it's okay. I only have 2 small conditions. You say. Qingmo spoke calmly. He is ready to be slaughtered by Ling Tien. First, my Ling Yao big sis was shocked tonight, so I want you to compensate 1.2 billion purple profound crystal for the disturbing fee. Qingmo can't help but lose face when he hears this. He thought that Ling Tien would speak loudly. But unexpectedly, he wanted so much. You must know that the Emperor's battle damages demanded from the martial god nation is only 1.2 billion. This amount is too big. I only carry 200 million purple profound crystals in my body now. Qingmo said. It's okay. Ling Tien smiled kindly, and spoke very empathetic. You give me 200 million first. Then even go back to the Feathering Empire to get the remaining 1 billion purple profound crystals. As for you Mu Chen, you can take it away if you don't worry. My son will never stop you. Really? Qing Mo looked at Ling Tien in disbelief. Naturally it is true. And not only that, even this young man can let you find strange people and strangers on the profound god continent during the time of preparing 1 billion purple profound crystals. You can give it a try. Who on this profound continent can unlock this young man's soul-burning soul-seeking seal? As long as someone unlocks it, my son will give you 1.2 billion purple profound crystals. Ling Tien said indifferently. Joke. Few people even the Cthulhu universe can unlock the soul-burning death-wishing seal. With the help of the Yuha dynasty gang, they can't figure it out for 100 years. Good. Qing Mo nodded and then he threw Ling Tien a space to accept the ring. It contained 200 million purple profound crystals that he had reserved as a spare. Have passed. Ling Tien glanced roughly, then put it away. Now his Hua Shen can run at full power. Therefore, it can naturally absorb the energy of 200 million purple crystals to Ascension own cultivation base. In that case, let's stop here. Qing Mo arched his cupped hands against Ling Tien. And Ling Tien came directly to Qing Mo in a flash and said, Wait, didn't my son say that? 2 conditions, one is indispensable. Call. Qing Mo took a deep breath. I suppressed my anger and asked, What's the other one? Ha ha ha. Ling Tien turned his head and looked at Mu Chen with a pale face and then showed a devilish smile. Simple. This can be done by my son himself. After all, his figure swayed behind him, and the stars behind him appeared in front of Mu Chen in an instant. What do you want? Mu Chen looked at Ling Tien in horror. What do you say? Ling Tien's eyes were cold. He directly raised his foot and kicked Mu Chen's stall fiercely. See this action. The male cultivators present shrank their pupils, their bodies subconsciously tilted back, and then they clamped their legs tightly. No. Qing Mo looked at Ling Tien's movements and he suddenly roared. But it's too late. Taste. A dull voice sounded, as if something had been kicked and cracked. Mu Chen was kicked by Ling Tien for more than 10. In the end, he collapsed like mud and struggled with pain on the ground twice and finally fainted. And under him, a pool of red and yellow pus and blood flowed out. And there was a stench in the air. At this time, everyone's throats rolled and they began to speak in surprise. Mu Chen, crapped, in the horrified eyes of everyone. Qing Mo rushed to Mu Chen's side and he looked at the pool of pus and blood on the ground. Suddenly felt my head dizzy. If he guessed correctly, Ling Tien completely deprived Mu Chen of his qualifications to be a man. Ling Tien, you die. Qing Mo gritted his teeth in hate. How does Senior want to do it? Ling Tien held a hand, looked at Qing Mo with disdain. It seemed that he didn't take this strong man at the peak of Junzan seriously. At the same time, there is an extremely dazzling world-defying fairy light in his pair of eyes. Qing Mo stared at Ling Tien with a pair of flashing cold eyes. There is a little faint light all over his body. At the same time, an extremely terrifying coercion dissipated from his body. He is the great master. In this peace talk, he was here to protect Prince Mu Chen. However, now Mu Chen has not only been planted by Ling Tien with the soul-burning mark for death. Even, it was scrapped by a kick. If he wants to return to the Emperor to explain this matter to the Emperor of the Emperor. That's the only way to bring Ling Tien's head back today. But the problem is that he is not sure that he can kill Ling Tien. Not to mention, Yi Qingluo, the master of Tianyi Palace, is in Wudu. Just say, she is not in Wudu. If so, Ling Tien really has the power to crush the void like rumors. If he rushes to make a move, I am afraid that even he himself will be ruined in this Wudu city. Ah! Qing Mo sighed and then leaned down and picked up the unconscious Mu Chen, turned into a divine light and quickly disappeared into the night. The coercion at the peak of Zhongshuan realm disappears. The nobles and princes who were present breathed a sigh of relief. Then they looked at Ling Tien and couldn't help but swallow. Tonight's Ling Tien. Refresh their knowledge again. The methods are extremely terrifying. And it's lawless to do things. This kind of person must not be provoked. Thinking of this, the dignitaries of Zhengwu nodded secretly. Sister Ling Yao, let's go back. It's not early today. Ling Tien said softly to Ling Yao. Ling Yao nodded and then took Ling Tien's arm naturally. Let's go home. When Yi Ziwan on the side saw this, she bit her silver teeth and quickly followed and grabbed Ling Tien's hand. Afterwards, a sly point flashed in her beautiful eyes and said to Ling Yao's grievances. Sister Ling Yao, since you are back, then you have to take care of the bad guy Ling Tien. In the days when you are no longer Wudu, Ling Tien really has become more and more presumptuous. I took away my first kiss this morning. You have to call the shots for me. Heard this sentence, Ling Tien almost didn't fall. He said helplessly to Ling Yao. Sister Ling Yao, don't listen to this girl talking nonsense. Obviously she took the initiative to attack me. If I want to be wronged, I am wronged. Ha ha. Ling Yao shook her head and chuckled, then stretched out her hand and tapped Ling Tien's forehead gently. You guy, what is wrong? After that, she pulled Ling Tien aside. Then she asked softly, holding Yi Zikite's arm. Ziyuan, tell me, how do you kiss? What? Yi Ziwan exclaimed when she heard that, and then responded in a low voice with a blushing face. How can I kiss? Just use your lips. After all, she couldn't help but gently squeeze own lips as if they were aftertaste. Isn't it? Ling Yao looked at Yi Ziwan's moon face, full of playfulness, and did not speak thoroughly. There is nothing, Yi Zi asked with a confused look. Of course. Ling Yao leaned down and whispered something in Yi Zi's ear. Immediately afterwards, Yi Ziwan suddenly screamed. Pretty Face flushed and buried her head directly in Ling Yao's arms. Said like a mosquito. No, no one told me to stick out my tongue. Ling Tien watched walking in the front, as if two girlfriends were intimacy and timid words. Ling Yao and Yi Zi, who were arguing with each other from time to time. Reluctantly, I smashed Tan Showdown. Emotions, I am superfluous. The three walked all the way in the moonlight, enjoying this rare quiet time. Wait till the time of final separation. Yi Zi looked at Ling Tien and Ling Yao a little bitterly and waved. Ling Yao said, Ziwan, remember what Big Sis told you? Yi Ziwan heard this, her eyes drifted to Ling Tien's body with a blur. Then gradually moved up, locked Ling Tien's lips. At this moment, she nodded without understanding and then said, Oh, I probably get it. After all, she ran back into the Tianyi army mansion as if she had fled. When Ling Tien and Ling Yao returned to the Shen's military mansion together, holding hands. It's getting late, but the huge bright moon above the sky is still bright. Ling Tien looked at Ling Yao, who was as beautiful as a goddess under the beautiful moonlight, and couldn't help but lose his mind. I thought to myself, it's my own Ling Yao sister. Put on the golden armor, she is the mighty and domineering god of war. Take off the armor, and you are the neighbor Oni-san, who is as beautiful as the moon god, soft as spring water. What are you looking at? Ling Yao's pretty face looked a little red when Ling Tien could not help but groaned. Sister Ling Yao, it's best to watch. Ling Tien gave Ling Yao a thumbs up. Humph. Ling Yao put her hands around her chest and looked at Ling Tien with a playful look. Yes, then, who is more beautiful, Palace Master Qing Luo and His Royal Highness Princess Long? Forehead. Ling Tien heard the words, speechless for a while. Then he touched his nose and smiled. You all have their own merits. Yes. Ling Yao's tone became a little weird. Ling Tien nodded. All right, I believe you. Ling Yao stretched out her jade hand and gently stroked Ling Tien's cheek. After that, she adjusted her emotions, and then stared at Ling Tien in a bit of seriousness. Do you remember, a year ago, when you sent me to the expedition, did I say anything to you? Hearing this, Ling Tien was stunned, then shook his head. Since he acquired the wicked body of the world, the body and memory of the former, Ling Tien, no longer exist. Now he can say that he has nothing to do with Ling Tien. So he naturally didn't know what Ling Yao said a year ago. Silly goose. Ling Yao glared at Ling Tien. Then, her red lips slightly opened and said, A year ago, I said that if I can come back safely from the battlefield this time, I hope you can promise me one thing. What's up? Ling Tien looked at Ling Yao with some doubts. Ling Yao was silent for a long time without saying a word. Upon seeing this, Ling Tien's mind was slightly stunned. It seems that what Ling Yao wants to agree to is a little hard to tell. Sister Ling Yao, speak up. Ling Tien encouraged Ling Yao. At this moment, he has guessed 3 points. Actually. Ling Yao raised her head and looked at Ling Tien blankly. Then I swallowed it again. Actually, she is on the border between Junwu. I have imagined this scene more than once every time when the night is quiet. But at this time, she couldn't tell. She is a little upset at the moment. Obviously she can kill the quartet on the battlefield, but why can't she say her own feelings to her? And at this moment, Ling Tien suddenly spoke. Does Ling Yao really want to say that? Actually, you don't want to be my big sis anymore. Heard this sentence, Ling Yao suddenly raised her head and stared at Ling Tien in a daze. There is a touch of shock on the flawless dreamy face of a white jade. The lips of the flower that resemble cherry blossom petals lightly opened, and they murmured like eating in a dream. How do you know? Under the moon. Ling Tien looked at Ling Yao's blushing pure moon face and smiled slightly. Because I can feel it. Ling Yao never thought of me as little brother. But, Ling Yao interrupted before finishing talking. Do not talk. Ling Tien looked at the eyes drooping slightly, and the charming Ling Yao spread out her hands. So, now what do we two say? Ling Yao dare not look into Ling Tien's eyes. At the same time, the heartbeat is very fast and complicated. She was a little scared Ling Tien just regarded her as big sis. At the same time, I was a little worried that after she and Ling Tien confided in their concerns today, if Ling Tien doesn't like her, reject her, then the relationship between the two will become awkward. Ling Tien quietly looked at this self, the god of war, big sis. Heart move, just when he wanted to speak. But the system prompt sounded in my ear. Ding. According to the situation, the host triggers the god level selection function of the system. Choose 1, reject Ling Yao's 800, get the martial arts law, the prisoner's heavenly finger, and the sky will transform into a dragon. Option 2, accept Ling Yao and get the furious lotus of fighting and breaking Dharma Buddha. The system will give the host 3 kinds of flames at will. Hearing that, Ling Tien was stupid in place. I thought, it's okay. Although he somewhat despised the rules of system trigger selection. However, it is still very fragrant to say nothing. After all, this choice will have to be made by oneself sooner or later. So how can he get one of martial arts or fighting and breaking techniques? And the problem now is, he has to choose the martial art or the fighting and breaking method. Martial arts, full of 2 skills including the great desolate prisoner's finger. Fighting method, with Buddha's anger lotus plus 3 kinds of random flames. It may be difficult to choose just looking at the rewards. However, he actually already had the answer in his heart. Just when Ling Tien was immersed in his own thoughts, Ling Yao quietly raised her head and took a peek at Ling Tien. Seeing that Ling Tien did not respond this time, her heart gradually sank, and a touch of sadness passed through her beautiful eyes. However, she still opened her mouth with the last glimmer of hope. It doesn't matter if you haven't made a decision yet. I can wait. If you think it over, you can come to the bedroom to find me. After that, she turned and left and returned to the own bedroom. And Ling Tien looked at Ling Yao's back. He was silent for a while, then smiled. Then walked towards Ling Yao's bedroom. Ling Yao back to the bedroom. She sat sadly at the dressing table. Beautiful eyes quietly looked at the bright moon hanging high in the sky. The moonlight passed through the eaves of the window, and fell on her beautiful face, which looked a little sad. Sure enough, Ling Tien little brother doesn't like me. He only regarded me as his good big sis from beginning to end. Ling Yao's red lips slightly lifted and sighed softly. She thought she had done enough mental building. But unexpectedly, when Ling Tien was silent, she still felt heartache. And just when she was sad, boom, 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 there was a knock on the door. She suddenly turned her head and looked out the door. The heartbeat suddenly accelerated. Ling Yao. It's me. Hear Ling Tien's voice. Ling Yao knew that Ling Tien should have made a good decision. Although, her hunch is very bad at the moment. Never mind. Even if this guy refuses me, I am still Ling Yao, or his big sis. In the future, even if you only be sisters and brothers, you can stay together for a long time. Ling Yao nodded gently. She has done it. If Ling Tien refuses her, she will give up. From then on, I was able to play the role of a gentle big sister behind Ling Tien with peace of mind. Come in. Ling Yao's voice was somewhat complicated. Ahem. Ling Tien outside the door heard that he coughed dryly and then pushed the door in. At this time, it is impossible to say that he is not nervous. The moonlight is like water. Ling Yao wore a loose white silk dress sitting in front of the dressing table. In fact, it is really hard to imagine. This woman, martial sage Big Sis, is wearing such an enchanting and perfect body under the armor. At this moment, Ling Yao's 3,000 green silks were scattered randomly, a little messy. A pair of beautiful eyes that were majestic on weekdays, but at this time they were as gentle as moonlight with a little sadness. She bit her delicate lips tightly and spoke to Ling Tien. Have you made a decision? Ling Tien's throat rolled down. Then quietly walked in front of Ling Yao. What is your decision? Ling Yao stood up and asked Ling Tien face to face. I hope Sister Ling Yao will always be by my side. Ling Tien said startledly. I see. Ling Yao heard the words, and a faint flash of light flashed across Chao's face. She thinks Ling Tien's meaning is very clear. It's nothing more than trying to keep her brother-in-law relationship with her forever. Looking at Ling Yao's appearance, Ling Tien asked a little surprised. Sister Ling Yao is not happy. Ha ha. Ling Yao smiled bitterly, then gently stroked Ling Tien's cheek and said. Perhaps Big Sis is too greedy. But that's fine. As sisters and brothers, you and me, maybe you can do it forever and never separate. What? Ling Tien heard this sentence. He knew that Ling Yao had misunderstood. Then she thought about it. Decided to show his intentions with practical actions. So he held Ling Yao's jade hand in Ling Yao's somewhat lost gaze. No matter how hard it is. What? There was an exclamation in Ling Yao. Ling Tien finally hugged Ling Yao's mature and soft body. Ling Tien, little brother you. Ling Yao was so hugged by Ling Tien that she didn't react for a while. The tall Yaobi smells the breath that belongs to Ling Tien. If your head is down, it can be said to be empty. A heart almost jumped out of it. Sister Ling Yao. What I want to say is, you are older than me, naturally my eternal Big Sis. But I just want Sister Ling Yao to be my only Ling Tien from now on, forever. Ling Tien said softly in Ling Yao's ear. Exclusive to him. It's still the kind of eternal life. Ling Yao heard these words, her pretty face became even hotter. At the same time, a pair of eyes are tender and tender. Although Ling Tien didn't understand it, she seems to understand Ling Tien's heart. Is this the legendary sibling love? It looks pretty good. Ling Yao said in a low voice. Hearing this, Ling Tien raised the corner of his mouth slightly and asked softly. Sister Ling Yao agrees to this. A little bit of sound. Ling Yao directly buried her head deeply in Ling Tien's arms, and did not dare to lift it up to let Ling Tien see her expression of shame and anger at the moment. At the same time, at this moment, she was surrounded by a sense of happiness that she had never had before, and her heart was even more sweet as if she had eaten honey. Very good. Sister Ling Yao will only be mine from now on. The smile on Ling Tien's face gradually became rich and happily shouted. Okay, it's getting late. You should go back and rest. Ling Yao said nervously, although she has been in a relationship with Ling for days. But she doesn't want more people to know yet. Because, she is still Miss Shen's Junfu in her current status. Ling Tien's Big Sis in name. Ling Tien nodded and watched while still hugging Ling Yao with a smile. But Sister Ling Yao hugged so tightly. How can I go? What? Ling Yao reacted suddenly and then withdrew from Ling Tien's embrace. At this moment, she wants to maintain the majesty of a general Big Sis as much as possible. But I found that it was impossible. Since Ling Yao's sister won't let go. Then I won't go. Today, I slept with Ling Yao. Ling Tien stretched a lazy waist and lay down on the bed directly in Ling Yao's eyes. Still under the moon, Ling Yao looked at Ling Tien's pretty face lying on her bed with a touch of helplessness. But she didn't say anything. Lianbu moved lightly, and then sat beside Ling Tien, his red lips bent slightly and whispered. Okay, go to sleep. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the God level selection. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the fighting technique Buddha's Fury Lotus. Ding. The system is randomly selecting 3 kinds of flames. Ding. Congratulations to the host for randomly selecting Fire. Chilling Ice Phoenix. Ding. Congratulations to the host for randomly selecting the fire, Galaxy Cluster Tien. Ding. Congratulations to the host for randomly selecting fire seeds. Nirvana Holy Flame. Hear the system prompts by the ear. Ling Tien sat up and directly held Ling Yao's 3 pretty fierce kisses. Sister Ling Yao, you are really the best woman in the world. Ling Tien sighed deeply. The extremely cold ice phoenix flame is the heart flame of the ice phoenix. The fire is like extremely ice and it is extremely powerful. Galaxy Cluster Tien, the last flame before Galaxy Cluster's death, possesses the power of Galaxy Cluster's death. Nirvana Holy Flame, auxiliary flame, has a strong healing power. Looking at the 3 fires that fell into my heart and soul. Ling Tien's eyes are shining. It's indeed time for this reward to come. Although the Great Desolate Prisoner's Heaven Fingers and the Blue Heaven's Dragon transformation are not bad. But if you want to show its true power, you still need a certain amount of time to cultivate. However, he obviously doesn't have much time now. Therefore, he chose the Buddha's Fury Lotus plus 3 kinds of fire flames. Because the Buddha's Anger Lotus is not so much a kind of cultivation technique. Rather, it is a technique of fusing flames. With his comprehension, he can easily master the method of fusing the 3 kinds of flames and condensing the Buddha's Anger Lotus without cultivation. There is no doubt that this is the fastest and most significant choice of Ascension's combat power in a short period of time. You must know that the Buddha's Fury Lotus, which is formed by the fusion of 3 flames, is very powerful. In the short term, the benefits are the highest. Besides, his female martial sage Big Sis Ling Yao has expressed her own mind so clearly. As a normal man, Ling Tien must not refuse. Who refused again? Such a military god, Big Sis, who can command the army on the battlefield, is majestic and gentle at home, and is very gentle in indulgence to himself. Sister Ling Yao, are you angry? Ling Tien came back to his senses and asked Ling Yao, who was a little stunned in the same place, and asked softly. It seems that the behavior just now was a bit rude. No, no. Ling Yao shook her head. A pair of beautiful eyes looked at Ling Tien a little bit shy and complicated. Ling Tien's sudden attack just now made her a little flustered. However, her panic was not because of Ling Tien's 3 shallow kisses. After all, she is not a pure paper kite. What she thinks at the moment is, in the dead of night, Ling Tien shouldn't be with her. Thought of here, Ling Yao's pretty face showed 2 red clouds. She whispered, Ling Tien brother, Big Sis is because of cultivation technique. So you can't do things like men and women. Hearing this, Ling Tien was stunned for a moment. He just got the Buddha's Anger Lotus and 3 fire seeds. So I just feel happy. It's not what Ling Yao thought. But, Ling Tien glanced at Oni-san Ling Yao, who exudes a majestic aura but is very beautiful. His throat rolled. This is not impossible, but Ling Yao said she couldn't do it because of cultivation technique. Ling Tien subconsciously opened the eyes of insight. Name, Ling Yao. Age, 23 years old. Identity, current general of Shen's military mansion. Cultivation base, Holy Lord 7 realms. Cultivation technique, Phoenix Dance 9 Heavens decision. Measurements, 95/65, 98. Host can expand more. Ling Tien looked at Ling Yao's cultivation technique Fengwu 9 Heavens and nodded. This cultivation technique has a total of 90% realm, and every breakthrough into realm will usher in a transformation. And before reaching the 7th floor with Feng Lai, I felt that I couldn't do things with men and women. Otherwise, you can only stay in that realm for the rest of your life. I see. Ling Tien nodded and understood the meaning of what Ling Yao said. Sister Ling Yao is okay. One day, I will eat you. Ling Tien lay on the bed with his head in his hands and said with a smile. You bad guy. I want to do bad things all day long. Not serious. Ling Yao stretched out her hand and beckoned Ling Tien's thigh, and Chao's face became even more blush. Ling Tien directly held Ling Yao's wrist and asked with a smirk. Dare to ask Ling Yao how long will it take to break through? Ling Yao glared strangely. Ling Tien gave a serious thought and said. As long as I break through the Holy Lord realm, it should be no problem to reach Junzan realm. What? Ling Tien was shocked. He thought that Ling Yao had reached the 6th peak of Fengwu 9 Heavens. If so, he spends a little bit of mandate to buy some magical medicine of Ascension Physique Cultivation base realm to help him fuel the flames. Maybe let Ling Yao break through to the 7th floor in one fell swoop. As a result, Ling Yao said that he needed to reach the Emperor Profound Realm, which made Ling Tien feel a little distressed. After all, Ling Yao is only the 7th realm of the Holy Lord, and this has to be achieved in a short period of time. I am afraid it is really not easy. Ha ha ha. Ling Yao looked at Ling Tien, who had turned into a bitter melon face for a second and couldn't help but laugh. Go to sleep. It's not uncomfortable to fall asleep. Ling Tien looked at the playful smile on Ling Yao's face. He couldn't help but spread out his hands and said helplessly, Ling Yao, you really don't have back pain while standing up and talking. I can't stay here anymore. Otherwise, something big will happen. After all, he stood up and wanted to walk outside the door. And at this moment, Ling Yao looked at Ling Tien's back with a smile and then said, Does Ling Tien little brother really want to leave? Hearing this, Ling Tien nodded heavily and said, Hot weather. I'd better go back to my peach blossom garden. Ha ha. Ling Yao smiled, then she chuckled lightly. All right. If you want to go, let's go. Big Sis originally wanted to take advantage of the silence of the night. Get ready to play a new Xiao Ku for Ling Tien little brother. Looks now, forget it. Heard this sentence, Ling Tien stopped abruptly. He looked back. He found that Ling Yao was looking at him with her long, round and slender legs upright smiling. Ling Yao at this moment. She is no longer the majestic and domineering military god on the battlefield. It also seems to be no longer Ling Tien's extremely gentle big sis. It is a chaotic demon girl who charms the common people. Dare to ask big sis. How do you want to teach me? What flute do you want to play again? Ling Tien walked back to Ling Yao and asked in a low tone. Hearing that, Ling Yao was also a little nervous. When she was 16, Mrs. Su Shui from Shen's military mansion once taught her some of the most basic things about playing music. But I have never practiced it. But since she said this today, naturally impossible to recover. Took a deep breath. Ling Yao's beautiful eyes gradually became blurred. She touched her lips slightly, and said lightly, Since little brother said just now, big sis can't speak while standing. Then big sis just kneel down. But little brother should listen well. The song played by big sis is called Nocturne. This song has a wonderful effect to soothe the nerves. Hiss. Ling Tien felt the unparalleled flute played by Ling Yao. I couldn't help but took a breath and shouted out. Sister Ling Yao, forever dripping god. The top of 9 heavens, Shinto temple. In the huge Shinto palace. The goddess Mu Chen leaned on the golden emperor chair and quietly looked at a black dress and black hair in front of her. Next, Zhan Yu pays respects to Empress Rin Yu. The woman bowed down to Mu Chen. And she is the mysterious woman who appeared in the Tianqi temple before. I heard you have something to say. Mu Chen asked calmly. Yes, Zhan Yu nodded and then said. Your Majesty, the Ling Tien you ordered me to monitor. Subordinates found that the relationship between him and the great realm King Mu Li seemed unusual. Speaking of this, Xuanyu's voice is a little nervous. Oh, Mu Chen put a pair of divine eyes on her body. It's just a look at it. Xuanyu suddenly felt her soul tremble, as if she was as small as an ant in front of him. The whole body began to tremble violently. This actually is not Mu Chen deliberately. It's her instinct. Unusual. You are talking about how he is different from Mu Li. There was no emotional fluctuation in Mu Chen's tone. That Ling Tien seems to have already had a skin relationship with His Royal Highness Mu Li. I dare not conceal the slightest concealment from Mu Chen Xuanyu, especially about Mu Li. As everyone knows, Mu Li is the great realm king of the Haoyu King realm. It is the little sister of the goddess Empress. And she knew for the first time that Ling Tien and Mu Li had a male-female incident. She is broken. You must know that she is the palace lord of the Shendao Tiangong of the Shenshuan world. Not only did she disregard little sister who was optimistic about the god emperor, but she also let Ling Tien occupy her body. If Shendao Tiangong is to blame, she must be a felony. She came to take the initiative here today, and a large part of the reason is that she is inviting sin. However, what she didn't expect was, Mu Chen just said something lightly. Understood. Heard this sentence. Suddenly, Zhan Yu stayed in place for a moment. The development of this matter is a little different from what she imagined. Go on. Listen to this cold voice above 9 heavens. Zhan Yu couldn't help but shuddered and then regained consciousness. That Ling Tien is very mysterious and, although there is only the Holy Realm cultivation base, it can kill the strong monarch. This kind of combat power is really incredible. Hearing this, Mu Chen frowned and said coldly, "Say something I don't know." Zhan Yu's face changed, and she added in fear, "There is a woman beside Ling Tien. Subordinates have confirmed that she is a reincarnated person. However, because the contact time is too short, the subordinates cannot confirm whether she is a god or a demon." Reincarnated. Mu Ju's shallow lips slightly opened, and then he whispered in a low voice, "You finally gave a valuable message. In that case, you go now to find out the true identity of that woman. If she was once a god, then you will take her back to the heavenly palace. If it is a demon, you will kill it. Subordinates take orders." Zhan Yu knocked her head heavily on the ground. "The Shinto Empress personally ordered. Naturally, she will die. As for that Ling Tien, you have to show it to me too. Any news about him should be reported back to the Shinto temple in time." Hearing this, Zhan Yu raised her head and said, "Then Ling Tien has already become enemies with the guardian sect of the profound god continent. The subordinates have personally warned the state guardian not to attack Ling Tien. So, he should be very safe now. The reason she warned protector of the state was entirely for Mu Li. After all, Ling Tien occupies the body of the great realm Wang Muli of the Haoyu King realm. If the two really love each other, wait someday for Mu Li's return. Then Ling Tien is also the husband of the Haoyu Great Realm King. She is also the brother-in-law of Goddess Empress Mu Chen. If she protects Ling Tien, then it is crucial to her personal future development." Mu Chen heard this, she knocked on the table with her jade hand and said, "Your task is just to monitor, not asylum. Don't do it multiple times. If Ling Tien can't solve the ant forces on your profound continent, why does the emperor pay attention to him?" Hearing this, Zhan Yu's heart suddenly shook, and then said in fear, "Your Majesty God Emperor forgive sin. It's a stupid subordinate. Subordinates will immediately restore everything in the profound continent to normal." "So good." Mu Chen waved his hand and said, "Go down." Forehead. Zhan Yu mustered up the courage and asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, do you need your subordinates to intervene in matters of the great realm King Mu Li?" "No need." Mu Ju's light red lips light up. "She has her fate. No one should interfere." Heard this sentence, Zhan Yu bowed towards Mu Chen and then turned and disappeared into the Shendao temple. After a long time, when the huge Shinto temple returns to tranquility again, Mu Chen quietly leaned on the emperor chair. Under the mask, the red lips that are like the most delicate petals in the world whispered to themselves softly, Mu Li, this time samsara's reconstruction has caused you to lose your body. Is it worth it? You used to hate men the most." After that, Mu Chen's faint sigh echoed in the entire Tiangong. The camera turns back, Shen's military mansion. Early in the morning, Yi Ziwan came to the Shen's army happily. About the difference between Ling Yao and her about the kiss last night. She thought about it all night. Finally came to a conclusion. That's the bad woman Zhun Weiyang, who definitely bullied Ling Tien in Weiyang Palace that night. And, definitely stick out your tongue. When she thinks of this, she feels angry. She thought that own progress had completely caught up with Zhun Weiyang. But in fact, I found out that it was still worse. Came to Shen's military mansion. She first came to Ling Tien's Taohuiyuan and found no one. Then she went to Ling Yao's bedroom. Sister Ling Yao, are you up? After all, she opened the door and walked into the bedroom. At this moment, Ling Yao is sitting in front of the dressing table and is dressing. And Ling Tien was lying on Ling Yao's bed with all directions. "Zi Yuan is here." Ling Yao smiled at Yi Zi. "Sister Ling Yao, why is this guy Ling Tien in your bed?" Yi Zi looked at Ling Yao blankly. Hearing that, Ling Yao's pretty face flashed with a touch of imperceptible pink of money. Then he said, "Isn't this normal?" Yi nodded and said, "That's true. In her opinion, this is indeed a normal thing. After all, she also likes to sleep with Yi Qinglo at night. Although last night, She shamelessly went to Yi Qingluo's bed. As a result, Yi Qingluo kicked it out. And she didn't think about it anymore. I walked directly to the front butt and did it on Ling Tien's belly. Then stretched out his jade hand and directly grabbed Ling Tien's face and said, Ling Tien, fool. Get up. Rules. My mother, your master wants to see you. Forehead. Ling Tien opened his eyes with difficulty. What catches the eye is a beautiful eye that is pure white as snow, and is extremely delicate. Master, want to see me? At this moment, he suddenly sat up. Heart said, isn't the Lang Han devil going to explode his vest? Yes, my Lord Qingluo wants to see you. Hurry up to get up and follow me. Yi Ziwan hugged her arm, and looked down Ling Tien under her with a serious face. Forehead. Ling Tien moved her body a little embarrassingly but found that she couldn't move. So he spoke a little awkwardly. What's inside? You sit on me, how can I go? You are misunderstood by this bad posture. Yi Ziwan jumped out of Ling Tien's body and asked with a confused expression. Misunderstand? What's the misunderstanding? When Ling Yao heard the words, she rubbed Yi Yuan's hair with a helpless expression and said to Ling Tien. Get up. Don't make Palace Master Qingluo wait anxious. After all, Ling Yao pulls Ling Tien up. Then she changed Ling Tien's clothes very intimately and tenderly. The eyes are as gentle as water, as if it can melt everything. My Ling Yao is good. Ling Tien smiled slightly. After all, Ling Tien unconsciously put his gaze on Ling Yao's delicate lips, and the smile on his face gradually became weird. Looking at Ling Tien's playful eyes. How can she not know what Ling Tien thinks again? Ling Yao glared at Ling Tien and said, look again. Look at big sis again, I won't let you go. Ling Tien raises his hand and surrenders. Had it not been for the presence of Yi Ziwan, he really didn't want Ling Yao to let him go. Yi Zi looked at the behavior between Ling Tien and Ling Yao. She seemed normal, but she didn't know why she faintly felt that something was wrong. Go. Ling Tien looked at the somewhat absent-minded Yi Ziwan and reminded. Oh. Yi Zi reacted and went to Tianyi Army Mansion with Ling Tien. Two people walking side by side on the road. Yi Ziwan has been peeking at Ling Tien's profile. And Ling Yao's words yesterday are vividly remembered. So her gaze will always stay on Ling Tien's lips in the end. Leaf. What are you looking at? Ling Tien turned his head and asked playfully. No, I didn't peek at you. I didn't even want to kiss you. Yi Ziwan avoided Ling Tien's eyes in a panic and spoke a lot of words. Forehead. Ling Tien feels helpless. Yi Ziwan is really an innocent girl. She explained this, afraid that she didn't know her inner thoughts. Looking at Ling Tien's weird look, Yi Ziwan couldn't hold it any longer, glared at Ling Tien and said fiercely. You can't talk nonsense when you see my mother. If you dare to talk nonsense, Ben Miss wants you to look good. After all, Ye Yuan turned into a phoenix shadow and disappeared directly in front of Ling Tien's eyes. What a silly girl. Ling Tien spread his hands, then walked into Tianyi Army Mansion and walked towards Wangyu Tower. And is getting closer. His heartbeat is getting faster and faster. Finally, he came to the Wangyu Tower. Today's cold. She is wearing a white phoenix patterned skyleaf military skirt. Just a back view is enough to turn all beings upside down. You came. Lang Han didn't look back, his voice was as cold as ever. I don't know why Master is looking for me. Ling Tien asked straightforwardly. At the same time, he stepped forward and walked within 5 cold steps. It's not a big deal either. It's just that I want to tell you that the group of people from Hidden Sword Villa has left Wudu last night. The cold voice is a bit strange, even Ling Tien has noticed a touch of tension. Hearing this, Ling Tien nodded and then responded. Yeah, Disciple is going to set off at the Hidden Sword Villa tonight. In fact, he already knew what Lang Han said. Last night, Ji Yu Luokong had already informed him as soon as he left Wudu. Lengen should know this, so she really wanted to say that it must not be this. I heard that you were in love. Lang Han suddenly asked. I'm coming. Ling Tien's heart jumped suddenly when he heard Lang Han's words. Afterwards, he took a deep breath in response. Yes, Master. She's Lengen, from a hidden world fairy gate. Heard this sentence. Cold heart trembled. After that, She did not turn around and only left Ling Tien with an enchanting and beautiful back. Oh, yes, you seem to like her very much. Cold as much as possible to keep own voice calm. At the same time, she thought, what on earth does the emperor ask? Today, didn't you want to show your identity to Ling Tien? How come this topic comes up? Listening to the cold heart, Ling Tien calmed down a little bit. It seems that it is not only that I am nervous. Even the cold devil is panicked. Ling Tien calmed down a little, then said in a deep voice. Yes, I really like her, only, speaking of which. He did not go on. Just what? Lang Han turned around abruptly, a pair of icy eyes stared at Ling Tien in a daze. Ah, Ling Tien sighed. Then he said, it's just a pity that I don't seem to like me. Hearing this, Lang Han's glamorous and peerless pretty face changed slightly and then said. Why don't you know that she doesn't like you? Maybe she has another secret. After all, she said angrily in her heart. This emperor is just confused for a while. Why does this guy have to make so many brains? What a fool. At this moment, she really regrets, why did she recreate an identity for face to approach Ling Tien? Ha ha, Ling Tien smiled and then spoke. Maybe, ahem. Looking coldly at Ling Tien's secretly hurt appearance. I couldn't help but coughed, and the lips slightly opened, and the voice was very cold and proud and asked Ling Tien. Then talk about it. How do you like her? What do you like her? Maybe, Master can help you. Ling Tien heard the words and was silent for a long time. Then he said, disciple likes her. Good-looking face. Is it just a face? Lang Han frowned willow eyebrows. This answer is too superficial. But at this time, she heard Ling Tien's heartfelt voice. I like her look like an angry candy eater, she is still very beautiful even though she is bulging. I also like the way she tried to get close to her when she was dating to her. She was not cold at all at that time, she was very cute. I like her cold and ruthless face, but she blatantly prefers the appearance of an apprentice when she was a child. Although she does not admit it, I know that she is a preference. Coldly listening to Ling Tien's heartfelt voice, there was a feeling that I had never felt before. It is soft and regretful, but it is undeniable that there is still a hint of sweetness. Master, did you say she really liked me? Ling Tien looked at the cold and glamorous face in a daze and asked. Lang Han listened to Ling Tien dazedly and questioned her with almost no hesitation. I like it naturally. The voice falls. She suddenly noticed that there was something was wrong. Ling Tien asked, but why did I blew myself directly? At this moment, even Ling Tien was shocked. This is not the cold showdown he imagined. But this is the end of the matter. Let's just say it. Ling Tien took a deep breath and then said quietly. Master, you finally admitted it. Hearing this, the cold and beautiful eyes were stagnant, and my heart was panicked to the extreme. She subconsciously avoided Ling Tien's burning eyes. At the same time, he quickly turned his back to Ling Tien and said with a very hard-mouthed hum. I admit, what did you admit? You, don't think about it. Dare to talk nonsense, be careful that this seat kills you. Ah, Ling Tien looked at the enchanting back that could turn all beings upside down, the corners of his mouth were slightly. He took out the sound transmission stone Lang Han gave her from Najia. Walk in slowly, when a fragrance like jasmine blossoms into the nasal cavity. Ling Tien boldly stretched out his hand and hugged the slender willow waist that hugged the cold from behind. This moment, he is undoubtedly bold, and his heart is extremely nervous. After all, this is the first time he has made such an intimate action to an undisguised beauty master. Presumptuous, Lang Han was subconsciously scolded by Ling Tien tightly holding her, and the aura of the icy evil in her body was like an ice prison. And Ling Tien gritted his teeth to endure the bone-erupting chill, and the hands holding the cold willow waist tightened even more as if to rub it into his body. At the same time speak to the sound transmission stone. Kill if you want, whether you are cold, or my master. Anyway, Ling Tien only knows a little bit. Then you are my woman now. It's useless for anyone to come. I heard these very unreasonable words. The frosty face is still cold. But she quietly curbed her terrifying power. Then he struggled for a while, but he didn't let go after seeing Ling Tien die. She looked down at the flashing Najia and sighed quietly. Finally you still know. Ha ha. Ling Tien smiled and then put her chin on her cold shoulder and whispered in her ear. Master, it seems that you really want to fall in love with me. Otherwise, not finished. I only heard a sound of embarrassment. To shut up. Don't you let go of your hand, asshole. Hold so tightly and so tightly, really presumptuous. What? Ling Tien heard the words, quickly let go of his hand and then stepped back 3 steps and touched his nose with some embarrassment. Feel sorry. It's the disciple's fault. Humph. Lang Han turned around. A glamorous and unparalleled pretty face was full of coldness. A pair of beautiful eyes stared blankly at Ling Tien and said with some annoyance. Say it, since you have discovered your identity as a teacher. What do you want to do? Forehead. Ling Tien heard this, he thought about it seriously and then said. What else can I do? I just want to hug. Want to kiss. I want to do everything a couple can do with master. You, hearing the words coldly, speechless for a while. She feels helpless in her heart. Is this what she wants to ask? For her question, she clearly blamed Ling Tien for destroying the balance she had finally created, and did not expect Ling Tien's answer. However, Ling Tien spoke the words of tiger and wolf seriously. This guy, what is in his head? Ha, really shameless. Coldly snorted. Then master, since you didn't refuse. Does that mean that you agree to continue to fall in love with Tuer? Ling Tien asked quietly in his ears. To be honest, she is still a little nervous at the moment. After all, with a cold and moody personality, I really don't know what decision to make. Even he can't hear the cold heart anymore. This means that Lang Han has no thoughts about it now. After a long time, Ling Tien heard a cry. I'll take care of you. I heard Lang Han agree. Long live master. Ling Tien yelled in excitement. Then rushed forward and hugged Lang Han directly. You, let me go. Cold and cold broke free from Ling Tien's embrace, she pretended to say with majesty. Although I have agreed to continue the relationship with you. However, it doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. This is Tianyi Army Mansion, this seat is Tianyi Palace Lord. If this is seen by other people, how do you let me deal with it? In the future, you must obtain the consent of this seat to do anything. Oh, Ling Tien nodded and then he seemed to think of something and then said. Then master, can I kiss you now? You. Lang Han heard this, and immediately 3 black lines appeared on the top of his head. She took a deep breath and spoke out of breath. Not now. After all, she thought about it and added. Wait for you when you come back from Hidden Sword Villa. What? It will take so long. Ling Tien rubbed his eyebrows, a look of distress. Humph. Lang Han snorted softly and then turned around, no longer paying attention to Ling Tien. At the same time, she looked down at the prosperous Wudu city under her feet, and she was in a good mood for some reason. Xindao, it seems that after a showdown with this guy, everything is fine. Ding. Congratulations to the host and the cold couple reaching 40%. Ding. Congratulations to the host and the cold couple reaching 50%. Listen to the pleasant system prompts. Ling Tien is in a great mood. In less than a year, the main mission is half done. In that case, next, I will work harder to win Master Yi Qingluo in one fell swoop. No, Devil Dao is cold. Ling Tien nodded heavily. Master, I'm leaving. Hearing this, Lang Han turned around. At this moment, her cold and pretty face has returned to its original coldness. Go ahead, come back early. Ling Tien nodded, and then a reflex movement technique came directly in front of Lang Han's eyes. And under her extremely cold and majestic gaze, she slapped Moi on her face. Cool, successful attack. Ling Tien smiled slightly and quickly drove off. Cold and somewhat helpless, watching Ling Tien's breath became extremely coherent and muttered to himself. Humph, this guy is so skilled. I'm afraid it's not the first time. Fine, I hope he will return safely this time. After all, she turned around and looked at the clear sky, feeling the residual warmth on her face, and her mood was very bright today. And just then, her sound transmission jade rang again. Ling Tien's voice came out among them. Master, wait for me to come back, let's start the second date. After Lang Han heard the words, she suddenly thought of the one under Ling Tien's cherry blossom tree before. Her lips curled up in a beautiful curve. Dating. Leaving Tianyi Army Mansion, Ling Tien originally planned to go to Ling Yao to tell her about the Tibetan Sword Villa. But what he didn't expect was that today's Shen's military mansion came to someone who he didn't think about. Jun Weiyang. Why is she here? Ling Tien looked at the woman who was sitting and drinking tea with Ling Yao in the Great Hall of God Strategy. He was a little surprised. I'm home. Ling Yao looked at Ling Tien, who walked into the Great Hall, and smiled slightly. Ling Tien nodded. Since I'm back, then it's up to you to talk to your Royal Highness the Princess. Ling Yao stood up and walked in the direction of her bedroom. Before leaving, Ling Yao gave Ling Tien a fierce look, which was full of warnings. Forehead. Ling Tien scratched his head in embarrassment. Ling Yao can be said to be very indulgent to herself. Whether it is for herself and Yi Zi or Yi Qingluo. She is very tolerant and can even teach Yi Zi how to kiss. But only Jun Weiyang, she really doesn't seem to like it. Your big sis doesn't seem to like me very much. Jun Weiyang walked to Ling Tien's side and said in a light tone of 83. It's so obvious. Ling Tien spread his hands. Humph. Jun Weiyang snorted coldly. It doesn't matter. I don't like her anyway. Ah. Ling Tien sighed and then looked at Jun Weiyang's stunning and beautiful face and asked. Why are you here today? Is something wrong? Jun Weiyang shook his head and said bluntly. I want to go to the Hidden Sword Villa with you. Why? Ling Tien frowned and asked. He remembered that he had talked with Jun Weiyang. Don't walk with her this time. The plan has changed. Naturally, I have to adapt to circumstances. Furthermore, Kangjian Villa has what the palace wants. My palace must pick it up personally. Jun Weiyang said with a serious face. That's it. Go if you want. Ling Tien nodded. As Jun Weiyang said. The plan has been changed, and the original layout needs to be changed. Besides, Jun Weiyang's cultivation base and scheming are very strong. With her help, the success rate of overturning the Hidden Sword Villa can be ascension more than 30%. When to leave? Jun Weiyang asked. Tonight, Ling Tien responded. He still needs some time to make a follow-up preparation. So he set the departure time at night. I will come to you tonight. Jun Weiyang simply turned around and left. This woman is really awakening. Ling Tien looked at Jun Weiyang's back and whispered. Just now, he glanced at Jun Weiyang's information with insight and found that her Hallyu Immortal King body spirit had been awakened 10%. If he guessed correctly, there are things Jun Weiyang needs to awaken his soul in the Hidden Sword Villa, so she wants to go with her. But let's say it or not, Jun Weiyang is really changing every day during his awakening. Now she and the previous meeting in Shen's military mansion seemed to have changed again. Shook his head. Ling Tien walked to Ling Yao's bedroom. You mean Jun Weiyang will also go to the Tibetan Sword Villa with you? Ling Yao leaned on the edge of the window, asking in a surprised voice. At this moment, she already knew that Ling Tien was going to be an enemy of Hu Guizhong. And she was not as shocked as she imagined, she just gave it a little thought and agreed. But this is also normal. After all, with Ling Yao's cleverness, how could he not see the contradiction between Ling Tien and June Martial Emperor's room and Hu Guizhong? If she chooses one before Ling Tien and June Martial God, she will certainly stand with Ling Tien without hesitation. Even if Ling Tien will overthrow this empire in the end, she will not hesitate at all. Compared with this, she is more suspicious about Jun Weiyang's going to the Tibetan Sword Villa with Ling Tien. Yes, Kangjian Villa has what she wants. So, she has made a decision, and I agree. Ling Tien spoke helplessly. Ling Tien, Big Sis is actually not against you being with Jun Weiyang. It's just that this woman is very scheming, and her methods are fierce, not worse than Martial Emperor Xiaoyao. So, you must be careful this time. Ling Yao spoke earnestly. So this is Ling Tien suddenly realized. It turned out that Ling Yao was worried about him. It's not really against him being with Jun Weiyang. Ha ha. Ling Yao looked at Ling Tien's appearance, she couldn't help but felt a little funny and asked. Otherwise, why do you think I am so indifferent to Jun Weiyang? Hey, Ling Tien responded with a smile. I thought Sister Ling Yao was jealous. Hearing this, Ling Yao was silent for a while and then stepped forward and gently saved Ling Tien. I never wanted someone to occupy you. As long as you and I can be together in the future, whatever you want. But your future woman can only be the best woman, not all women can enter our Shen's military mansion. Heard these words, Ling Tien was moved and shocked. He didn't expect that Ling Yao had already indulged him to this point. How? Feel moved. Ling Yao looked at Ling Tien with a smile on his face and asked. Hearing this, Ling Tien looked at the woman who exuded majesty and luxury. With a hot heart, he directly held Ling Yao's pure white and flawless, beautiful face, and slowly lowered his head. What do you guys want to do? I heard that Sister Ling Yao gave Yi Zi a very intimate teaching. How about Big Sis also teach me? Ming. Good, very good. The night falls soon. In the Taohuiyuan of Shen's military mansion, Ling Tien and Ling Yao stand side by side. A small profound arc floats above the Shen's military mansion. This profound arc was completely dark with a strong swallowing force. The surrounding light was swallowed up by it. So even if it is suspended in the sky above Shen's military mansion, no one can find it. At this moment, a moon shadow pours down. Jun Weiyang's black gauze skirt slowly descends like 9 heavens. It's time. Jun Weiyang looked at Ling Tien seriously and said. Ling Tien nodded and hugged Ling Yao tightly. Be careful. Ling Yao spoke to Ling Tien, her eyes full of worries. Sister Ling Yao, wait for me to come back obediently. Ling Tien smiled at Ling Yao and immediately followed Jun Weiyang onto the black profound arc. Zheng. A black divine light tore away the black and galloped towards the distance. Tianyi Army Mansion Wangyu Tower. A long skirt with a phoenix pattern in the cold is blowing in the wind. She looked at the black profound arc quietly with beautiful eyes. The lips that seemed to be the most delicate in the world slowly lighten and then begin to speak. Ling Tien, this emperor is waiting for you to come back. Behind it, Ji Yu Xian also said in a low voice. Hope it goes well. And Ji Yu Qingcheng's perfect and delicate face is full of tears, and the voice is choked. Young master, it must be safe. And no one knows. With Xuanyu lifted the protection of Ling Tien. The state guardian, who has been silent for a long time, finally has an action. At this moment, among the huge national guardian sect, the disciple of 100,000 guarding state school kneeled on the ground and shouted. Respectfully send to the ancestor. In their sight, an old figure in a white robe walked towards Wudu with one foot on the smashing void. And in the feathered empire, following Qing Mo, Yu Mochen, who was half-worn with the soul-burning mark of death in his body, returned to the Yuha palace. With the power of the whole country, they couldn't remove Ling Tien's soul-burning death mark. Yuha, the monarch Yu Tianlin smashed the bedroom directly with anger, threatening to re-enter the war with Khan Junwu. Yuha Queen, Yu Mochen's mother secretly shed tears and vowed to kill Ling Tien to avenge her son. Yu Mochen's little sister, the famous princess of the Yuha dynasty, Yu Chuyu secretly took her master Yuha Jianjun towards Wudu. Before leaving, she left a note to the emperor and queen. Father, mother, don't worry. Daughter and master are going to Wudu this time to find Ling Tien children for justice. You will be able to save the emperor's brother. And the top of the gods. Zanyu smiled as she watched the two groups heading towards Wudu. I want to see Yi Qinglo who you are. For some reason, she has a hunch. The true identity of Yi Qinglo in Tianyi military mansion is definitely not simple. The dark profound arc tears open the night and hides the void. Galloping towards the direction of June Martial God Country hidden Sword Villa at an extremely terrifying speed. On the profound arc, Ling Tien and Jun Weiyang were relatively speechless. Jun Weiyang sat cross-legged on the bed. The beautiful eyes are closed tightly, and the whole body is surrounded by a layer of holy moonlight. An extremely oppressive power that is exclusively at the sovereign profound level came out. Ling Tien interestingly looked up and down this woman with a lot of background. The previous Jun Weiyang, although he had a deep mind, he showed his gentleness on weekdays, and he is the one who hides behind the scenes and controls the overall situation. And after a crazy night in the palace, she faded her tenderness and became extremely enchanting, like a peerless enchantress, with a blow and a smile full of flattery. But now she is like the goddess of the Moon Palace, extremely cold and silent. In just a few months, her changes are truly amazing. And at this moment, Jun Weiyang slowly opened his eyes, and a pair of Gujing Wubo's beautiful eyes calmly looked at Ling Tien and said, "Have you seen enough?" Ling Tien shrugged after hearing the words. "I'm just a little surprised that your changes these days are a little amazing." Humph. Jun Weiyang snorted coldly. her beautiful eyes looked at Ling Tien coldly and said, "People are going to change. This palace is no exception. Moreover, this palace really hates the eldest princess who was bullied and occupied by you before." Puffy. When Ling Tien heard these words, one of them held back a laugh. "Hey, Jun Weiyang, tell me who is bullying whom, who is occupying whom? In Weiyang Palace, although you and I are involuntary. But you were the cultivation base in the Holy Realm at the time, and I was just a small cultivator in the King Realm. How crazy you were that night, didn't you have any points in your heart? If it wasn't for this son's talent, I'm afraid." "To shut up." Jun Weiyang interrupted Ling Tien's words coldly, her chest was ups and downs violently. The emotion was broken by Ling Tien's words. And the pictures of that night that made people blushing and heart beating are like a movie, unconsciously playing non-stop. Until she forcibly used the profound arts, interrupted the screen and calmed her mind. She looked at Ling Tien bitterly and said with her silver teeth, "That night, it's my shame. Maybe it won't be erased for life. So Ling Tien, you have to mention it again. Shame." Ling Tien heard the words, suddenly there was a fire in his heart, and then he directly returned. "Jun Weiyang, you better figure it out for me. That night at Weiyang Palace. We owe no one to anyone. After that, you're deadly begging this son to cooperate. So, don't show your face to my son." "You." Jun Weiyang's pretty face changed, she wanted to speak to Ling Tien. However, she found that what Ling Tien said was indeed the truth. In the end, I can only hum and turn my head to stop looking at Ling Tien. She thought to herself, this guy is so annoying. Seeing this, Ling Tien didn't bother to talk to Jun Weiyang. I simply sat cross-legged on the bed and turned on the system. And then said in my mind, "System, I'm going to start preparing to collect my pets." Ding. The pet lottery system is ready. Does the host start the lottery right away? Hearing this, Ling Tien nodded in response without hesitation. "Start now." Ding. The system prompts that the system is randomly grabbing rewards for the host. Ding. The system prompts, the lottery is complete. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the God-level pet treasure chest. Heard this sentence, Ling Tien hurriedly opened the pet treasure chest. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the God-level pet 9-color swallowing python. Gaze shifting, he found that in the depths of Onzihai, besides the mysterious 3-copper coffin, there was also an extremely gorgeous 9-color dome. At this moment, he couldn't help but frown and thought, could it be that I want to drop my own blood essence on this 9-colored snake egg and let it recognize the Lord? Thoughts here. I heard the sound of the system prompt. Ding. The system prompts that the host needs to reach the Junxian realm to drop blood to recognize the Lord and summon the 9-colored sky-swallowing python. I see. Ling Tien nodded. He thought about it roughly. He is now the pinnacle of the Holy Realm. Although it seems to be far from Junzan. However, there are 200 million purple profound crystals in his acceptance. You know, the reason why purple profound crystal can become the hard currency of the entire divine profound world, and even the entire god and demon. This is because this is the crystallization formed by the earth dragon veins absorbing the most essence of the world. Therefore, the energy and heaven and earth energy contained in the purple profound crystal are extremely pure. A huge monarch, martial god, produces less than 10 million a year, and its preciousness can be imagined. But the problem is that although the purple crystal contains the purest energy, but looking at the 10 places of 9 heavens, no one can absorb and use the energy and heaven and earth power in it to cultivate. Therefore, as everyone knows, purple profound crystal is only circulated as currency in the entire 9 heavens world. However, this problem is not a problem for Ling. Now his god of transformation can turn on the maximum power. He can turn all the energy in the world into his own use. And this purple profound crystal is naturally no exception. Therefore, the 200 million purple profound crystal is the shortcut for his cultivation at this moment. He took out a palm-sized purple profound crystal and placed it in front of him. Call. Ling Tien took a deep breath and then opened a world-destroying realm transforming the gods. Zheng, the god of transformation, was turned on, and 2 black lights lit up in his eyes, as strange as the light of the underworld. Then a swallowing force against the laws of chaos swept out of him. Purple profound crystal also floated leisurely above the void. What? Jun Weiyang felt the swallowing power spreading out of Ling Tien's body. A touch of shock suddenly swept over her immortal face. So strong devouring power. At this moment, if it weren't for her, cultivation base is higher than Ling Tien. I am afraid that even the profound strength in her body will be taken away by Ling Tien. What does this guy want to do? Does he want to swallow the energy in the purple profound crystal, right? Jun Weiyang's red lips whispered to himself. Then, in her unbelievable gaze, I saw Ling Tien stretched out a finger and pointed it straight on the purple profound crystal floating above the void. Zheng. The moment Ling Tien's fingertips touched the purple profound crystal, an extremely thick and pure energy of heaven and earth was let out. Then flowed into Ling Tien's body along Ling Tien's fingertips. And Ling Tien's breath is also slowly ascension. How can this be? Jun Weiyang opened his mouth slightly, and his pretty face was full of shock and confusion. As we all know, the energy of the purple profound crystal cannot be used by the cultivator. However, the scene before her severely shattered her perception of this world. Is this guy still a human? Jun Weiyang has already stood up. Bing Ruohanyu's pretty face gradually became sluggish. This ability of Ling Tien is too heaven-defying. Looking at the 10 places of 9 heavens, even the goddess Mu Chen can't do it. Chapter 91. Looking at Ling Tien, who frantically devours purple profound crystal energy in front of him, Ascension Cultivation Base. A stormy sea was set off in Jun Weiyang's beautiful eyes. Xindao, what kind of evil is Ling Tien? Just as her mind flipped, Ling Tien has already swallowed all the energy of a piece of purple profound crystal. When the energy of heaven and earth is swallowed up, the crystal clear purple profound crystal suddenly shattered into dregs. But this is not over yet. Ling Tien doesn't seem to be satisfied yet. He waved his palm, responding to the ring, shining bright mysterious light. This time 10 purple profound crystals were floating around him. My eyes are locked, and I start to devour it. Clank, 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 clank. The 10 purest energies of heaven and earth rush into Ling Tien's body like a stream merging into the sea. At this moment, Ling Tien's body became purple light in the tempering of heaven and earth energy. His breath also had a qualitative ascension at this moment. Pincha, with a sound of Jingguan shattering sound. At this moment, Ling Tien has already broken into the second realm of Holy Lord. Call. Ling Tien felt the surging power in the body. He took a deep breath and looked down at the corners of Zi Xuanjing's mouth that turned into crumbs and ice scum, and a pleasant smile was raised. This purple profound crystal is indeed a cultivation god. After that, Ling Tien glanced at Jun Weiyang, who was already shocked and speechless, and he said, "What do you look at? Do you want to overthrow this sun again? This time, you come and try. My son, it won't be what you want." Humph. When Jun Weiyang heard this, she snorted coldly. Shameless. After that, she turned and sat back on the own bed and then said, "At our speed, we will be able to reach the Tibetan Sword Villa in 3 days at the latest. I want to see what kind of realm you can achieve in these 3 days. If the purple profound crystal is not enough, I can lend it to you. After all, the faster your ascension is, the higher our success rate this time will be. So, you are welcome, just speak bluntly if you need it." Ling Tien frowned upon hearing this. I thought to myself, this Jun Weiyang is still a little rich woman. He wanted to poke Jun Weiyang a few more words, but Jun Weiyang simply closed his eyes. Upon seeing this, Ling Tien couldn't help but spread his hands. Jun Weiyang at this time can be said to be a boring woman. But perhaps, as Jun Weiyang's Haoyu spirit gradually awakens, her personality will change again. It's just that Ling Tien couldn't guess what kind of woman Jun Weiyang would become in the end. Ling Tien sighed and then took out a bunch of purple profound crystals again. Turn on the god of transformation and start a race against time cultivation. 10 yuan, 20 yuan, 30 yuan, $50. 50 purple crystals swallowed together. This seems to have reached the limit that Ling Tien's body can withstand at this moment. However, his cultivation base and breath are also rising rapidly at a perceptible speed. The time of cultivation always flies quickly. 3 days' time, fleeting. And within these 3 days, Ling Tien lost 3.8 million purple profound crystals. His cultivation base 3 days ascension 4 realm. It turned out that the peak of the Holy Lord realm at the beginning of cultivation has reached the 5th realm of Holy Lord. Generally speaking, if there are no earth-shattering adventures, this kind of fast cultivation base ascension is absolutely impossible. However, this speed has become the norm in Ling Tien cultivation. Of course, the premise of all this is that the purple profound crystal is sufficient. Calculate carefully. The 200 million purple profound crystals helped me break through to the 3 to 4 levels of Monarch Profound Realm. There should be no problem at all. Ling Tien nodded gently, and Jun Weiyang on the side looked at Ling Tien and said nothing superfluous at all. It took nearly 4 million purple profound crystals in 3 days. Who can stand this? Regardless, she can't stand the burning of Ling Tien. You know, all the purple profound crystals on her body can only be worth more than 20 million. At this moment, she even wanted to take back what she said to Ling Tien just now. Why look at me like that? Ling Tien glanced at Jun Weiyang. I found that the woman was staring at him closely at the moment. There was a light that he couldn't understand. Humph. Jun Weiyang snorted coldly. Nothing. The hidden sword villa is 100 miles ahead. Do you have any plans? Ling Tien heard the words, he smiled and then raised his left hand and snapped his fingers directly. Jun Weiyang looked at Ling Tien with a puzzled face. I don't know what he meant. But soon, a voice galloped from a distance. He is dressed in white, handsome in appearance, and tall and straight. The temperament is ethereal like a drop of immortal, holding the Qishao sword in his hand. There is no doubt that he is Ling Tien's sole slave, Jiyu Luokong, the godson of Hidden Sword Villa. Meet the master. Jiyu Luokong came to the profound arc and knelt down in front of Ling Tien. His tone was very excited. Get up. Ling Tien waved his hand at him. Yes. Jiyu Luokong stood up. Directly ignored Jun Weiyang who was on the sidelines. At this time, there was only Ling Tien in his eyes that he was regarded as a god. Talk about it. What is the situation in the Hidden Sword Villa? Ling Tien asked. He still kept in touch with Jiyu Luokong for the past 3 days. At this moment, he probably knew that a distinguished guest had arrived in the Hidden Sword Villa. Report to the master. Yesterday evening, the Western Sky Battlefield and his party came to the Tibetan Sword Villa. Western Sky Battlefield. Ling Tien opened his mouth somewhat surprised. Jun Weiyang's pretty face also changed slightly. Neither of them expected that Shishan Battlefield would come at such a critical moment. Who is from the Western Sky Battlefield? Ling Tien asked. Shishan Battlefield, the 8th princess's parent and child, Zan Feng. And the battlefield guardian who guarded Zan Juishan, my father honored him as the battle guardian. Jiyu Luokong replied. Hearing this, Ling Tien lifted his eyebrows. He didn't expect. Yesterday evening, the person who came to Kangjian Villa was still a big man. Owner, Zan Feng has come to Tibetan Sword Villa for the first time. He comes here several times almost every year. And every time, I came to find my mother. Jiyu Luokong added. Ling Tien raised her brows and asked. Tell me, what have you found? Listen to Jiyu Luokong's words. He seemed to smell a hint of ambiguity. Yes, Jiyu Luokong nodded and said. 3 years ago, Zan Feng came to Tibet Sword Villa for the first time as a guest. At that time, he was on my grandfather's order to check whether the demon, the money is good, Jing Cannon is in good condition. After that, the relationship between him and my Hidden Sword Villa grew closer. Especially the relationship with my mother is very close. At that time, I already felt something was wrong. So a year ago, I paid special attention to Zan Feng's night at the Tibetan Sword Villa. Then what? The smile on Ling Tien's face became more ironic. Found under the slave. That night, that Zan Feng was in Hehe with his mother. Jiyu Luokong spoke blankly. It seemed that what was said had nothing to do with him. Nausea. When Jun Weiyang heard this, she couldn't help but scolded. And Ling Tien is a leisurely opening. Very good. Very good. Jun Weiyang heard this and looked at Ling Tien with surprise. Ling Tien applauded this kind of thing. It really is a fool. But what she doesn't know is, an ingenious plan has been formed in Ling Tien's mind. Master, what shall we do next? Jiyu Luokong asked in a low voice. I want to know if your Zanfeng will go to find your mother Roy for the night tonight. Ling Tien asked with a sarcasm in his eyes and voice. Hearing this, Ji Yu Luokong nodded without thinking in response. The slave thinks it will. Zanfeng, he will stay at the Hidden Sword Villa for about 7 days. And these 7 days, at least 5 days, he will do everything possible to find my mother alone in his room. Last night he arrived in the evening, and last night his mother stayed with his father, he had no chance. But tonight, Hidden Sword Villa's father is going to host the elder meeting. He has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so he can't help it. Very good. Ling Tien smiled and nodded, and then decisively spent 1,000 days in the system mall to buy 2 photo stones and threw them to Ji Yu Luokong. This is the Eternal Shadow Stone. I want you to put the photo-taking stone in Zanfeng's room in advance. When they are over, I want you to retrieve these 2 photo stones and return them to me. The next plan, I will teach you step by step. Yes. Ji Yu Luokong bowed to Ling Tien. A pair of sharp eyes carries the determination of willing Ling Tien to die. Go ahead. Ling Tien waved his hand. Then Ji Yu Luokong turned and left. Shadow Stone, are you trying to imprint a photo of Zanfeng and Roy's adultery, and then use this to threaten him? The plan is good though. But you have to know that the general Shadow Stone will fluctuate in profound energy when it activates the shadow. Anyone above the conferred king realm can easily perceive it. Jun Weiyang frowned and looked at Ling Tien and said. Ha ha. Ling Tien smiled and said. The one you said is a general photo-taking stone. But this photo stone of mine is different. Nothing you worry about will happen. Just kidding, the Eternal Shadow Stone worth 1 piece of 500 destiny naturally has its special function. Not only does it not have any profound energy fluctuations when it imprints the picture to take a picture. Moreover, its storage capacity is extremely large, and the photos are extremely clear. Most importantly, this photo is a permanent photo. If so, then I will rest assured. Jun Weiyang nodded. Oh, when Ling Tien heard this, his eyebrows slanted and asked in surprise. You actually have no objection to this plan of mine. It's not like you. Humph. Jun Weiyang snorted, and said with a cold face. Biff, your methods are dirty though. But with this photo-taking stone, we can threaten to control Zanfeng and the Roy. This is undoubtedly the best method today. In that case, why not do it? Hearing this, Ling Tien shook his head and said. Control is right. But let's talk about threats. Are they worthy? Jun Weiyang. She looked at Ling Tien's disdain and dangerous sneer thoughtfully. At this moment, she felt that she made the problem simple. Hidden Sword Villa, the atmosphere is solemn. Since the wife of the Zhangjian Villa was humiliated and returned from Wudu, the entire Tibetan Sword Villa has entered an emergency state of preparation. 18 Hidden Swords Elder, 24 Hidden Sword Guardians. This group of the highest level figures of the Hidden Sword Villa rushed back to the Hidden Sword Villa from all over. In the main hall, Ji Yu Qingshan, the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, sat silently on a high position. And his wife Roy was sitting beside him, her beautiful and pretty face was full of gloom. The atmosphere in the main hall is extremely depressing. And the Roy couldn't help looking at his husband's silent look anymore, just stood up and roared. Ji Yu Qingshan, what do you think? My Roy has been so humiliated by the fool of the Tianyi army mansion. Punishment Elder Ji Yu Wuming for being forced to abolish the cultivation base. But now, as my husband and the owner of the Hidden Sword Villa, you have no idea at all. Dare to ask, are you still a man? Hearing this, a warm and anger flashed across Ji Yu Qingshan's face, and the hand that made a fist trembled slightly. He was the owner of the Sword Villa, but Mrs. Own questioned whether he was a man or not. No one could bear it. But he finally endured it, and at the same time he took a deep breath and said, Mrs. According to the judgment of the Elder Academy, Yi Qingluo's cultivation base has a high probability of reaching the realm of profound sky. Plus, there is Susha Ice Palace standing behind her. If we mobilize the strong to attack the Tianyi army mansion, then this will become a large-scale chaos. Although my Hidden Sword Villa is strong, but at the same time against the Misty Ice Palace and the Tianyi army palace, even if it can win, it can only be a miserable victory. This is still not counting the situation of Shens Junfu and the mysterious Ling Tien master. Even in this battle, we must fight. Should we also be fully prepared? After all, the elder guardians of the Hidden Sword Villa nodded. At this moment, the Roy sneered. Fart. You just can't bear to use the secrets of the Hidden Sword Villa to stand up for me. After all, a soft and loose voice came out slowly. Uncle, what kind of bullshit are you talking about? You know, my aunt is more than the wife of your Hidden Sword Villa. She is still my 9 princesses in the Western Sky battlefield. My son doesn't care how strong Yi Qingluo's cultivation base and power are that day. Since she dared to insult my princess in the Western Heavens, she should be prepared for destruction. The voice falls. I saw a young man slowly walked into the main hall. He was dressed in a luxurious gold dress, with long hair reaching waist, and a jade-like face with a touch of indifference. Although he called Uncle Ji Yu Qingshan on his lips, he did not show the slightest respect for the elders in his language and expression. Seeing the visitor, the Hidden Sword Guardian and elder in the entire main hall were breathing stagnant, bowed their heads and did not dare to speak. And Ji Yu Qingshan also changed his face and said hurriedly, Maple young master is right. Yi Ren is noble, since she has been humiliated outside. Then I Hidden Sword Villa, I must seek this justice anyway. Don't worry, I will leave Wudu in 3 days when I order a strong Tibetan sword. Humph. Zan Feng snorted coldly. It's almost the same. After that, his gaze turned to the Roy. When he looked at it, Roy, who was mature and beautiful like a peach, quietly flashed a fiery eye. Then, his eyes moved, and then he waved to the outside of the hall. At this time, I saw an old man slowly walking in. Ming Lao, regarding the crusade against Tianyi army mansion Yi Qingluo in the Tibetan Sword Villa 3 days later, please give them more guidance. Let these skeletal heads of Tibetan Sword Villa know well what is the style of behavior in the Western Heavenly battlefield. Zan Feng solemnly ordered to the old man. When the words fell, the expressions of everyone in the Tibetan Sword Villa changed, and they could only grit their teeth to endure the scolding. Who said that the identity in front of him is too noble, and no one in the Tibetan Sword Villa really can't afford it? Old slave understands. Ming Lao bowed to Zan Feng and then he slowly walked into the main hall with everyone's horrified eyes. And Zan Feng said to Roy with a soft smile, Auntie, leave it to Elder Ming. Let's go out. Fenger wants to drink your honey water with you. Heard this sentence. Roy's eyes flashed with shame and fire, and then he walked out of the main hall with a serious face and Zan Feng. Together, the two walked towards the accord dedicated to Zan Feng. There is a tall and elegant accord to the south of the Kangjian Villa. Battlefield Pavilion. This is the attic built by the Kangjian Villa specially for the distinguished guests in the Western Heavenly battlefield. Generally speaking, no one enters or exits here except for the people in the Western Sky battlefield. And at this time in the extremely luxurious Battlefield Pavilion, Zan Feng is wearing a thin shirt and leaning against the window. I passed through the bead curtain and placed it in the cabinet bath. In the misty water, among the water ripples, a beautiful lady is bathing. Auntie, Fenger is really nice. I haven't seen you for a long time. You don't know how Fenger lived in Fenger in the Western Heaven battlefield without you. Zan Feng's voice was a little hot and said, Ha ha ha. A coquettish laugh came from the bath. You little villain is the dignified young Master Maple of the Western Sky War. As long as you speak, what kind of woman do you want? Do you still want to coax your aunt? No. Zan Feng Guo decidedly shook his head and confessed affectionately. Since I met you, it will be difficult for other women to get into Fenger's eyes. Speaking, he didn't finish. I only heard a splash of water. Beauty out of the bath. The Roy was wrapped in a nightgown, walked on his long slender legs and slowly pushed aside the shower curtain and walked out. What are you talking about? There was a smile on the corner of Roy's mouth, and a pair of coquettish eyes were full of amorous feelings. Just a glance. Zan Feng was completely lost. Nothing. Zan Feng couldn't help swallowing as he looked at the charming woman in front of him. Now that, nothing, then Fenger can't come to honor his aunt. The Roy smiled coquettishly and uttered lazily, Fenger, obey. Zan Feng nodded heavily and walked towards the Roy. And no one found out. In the crystal lamp that ignited the battlefield pavilion and on the dressing table, there were 2 black profound stones that suddenly flickered with an extremely subtle light. Beyond the battlefield pavilion, Ji Yu Luokong stood calmly in a shadow. Wait quietly. An hour's time has passed by. Zan Feng hugged the Roy and walked out of the battlefield pavilion together. Okay, go back. The Roy smiled at Zan Feng and said. Auntie is leaving. Zan Feng, holding Roy's hand, obviously didn't want to let anyone go. It's too late. If Qingshan returns to the bedroom and can't see me, it will inevitably be suspicious. The Roy patted Zan Feng's face lightly. Don't worry, it won't. I have told Ming to grow old. They can't end this meeting until tomorrow. Zan Feng smiled triumphantly. You little slippery head. You are smart. The Roy glared at Zan Feng angrily, and then she sighed. What else can I do? You can go with your aunt in the next round. Hearing this, Zan Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Is it going to your bedroom? Ha ha ha. The Roy chuckled softly and nodded. I have no choice but to do what you want. Go, Auntie will take you to eat supper. After that, he took Zan Feng's hand and walked towards her bedroom. When the two figures gradually moved away, Ji Yu Luokong walked out of the shadows with a gloomy expression, walked towards Zan Feng's accord, and took away the two eternal shadow stones. Then he spoke to Ling Tien. Master, the thing is done. After all, Ji Yu Luokong waited quietly. After a few breaths, Ling Tien's voice comes from the sound transmission stone. Tomorrow, find a chance to bring Zan Feng to the martial forest of God. Clear, early morning of the second day. Zan Feng walked out of the Roy's bedroom in a refreshing manner. And when he returned to the battlefield pavilion, someone was there waiting for him. Los Angeles, how did you come? Zan Feng looked at the cousin in front of him with a touch of surprise in his eyes. On weekdays, he and Ji Yu Luokong are not close. Generally speaking, Ji Yu Luokong would not come to him. Hearing this, Ji Yu Luokong said with a smile on his face. Cousin, where did you go last night? Little brother has been waiting for you here for several hours. Forehead. There was a flash of tension in Zan Feng's eyes, and he coughed twice and said. I was outside cultivating last night. What's the matter with you? Ha ha, I see. A glimmer of light flashed in Ji Yu Luokong's eyes, although he said kindly. Actually, it's nothing big. It's just that the weather is good today. There are many magical beasts in the God Martial Forest. I wonder if my cousin can hunt and relax with Los Angeles. You and my brother can also take this opportunity to draw closer together. Generally speaking, in his capacity, he would not care about Ji Yu Luokong's invitation at all. Although Ji Yu Luokong is the godson of Tibetan Sword Villa, his identity is not on the same level as him. But he had a crazy night with Ji Yu Luokong's mother last night. In order not to arouse any suspicion, he still decided to agree to Ji Yu Luokong. In that case, my cousin is worse than being respectful. Please lead the way. Good. A light beam flashed in Ji Yu Luokong's eyes and then took Zan Feng to the God Martial Forest outside the Tibetan Sword Villa. Two divine lights broke out of the hidden Sword Villa. In less than half an hour, he came to the God Martial Forest. Luokong cousin, you are now 20 years old at Cultivation Base, but you have reached the second stage of the Holy Lord. You are really talented. If you are placed in the Western Sky battlefield, this is also a rare genius. Zan Feng said with a smile on his face. Cousin praised. For cultivation, my mother is very strict with Los Angeles. Ji Yu Luokong chatted with Zan Feng one after another. It turned out to be so. My aunt is indeed such a stern person. However, she is so harsh on you because she has great hopes for you, and you have to understand her. Zan Feng nodded, and the corner of his mouth curled up in a shallow arc. Humph. Ji Yu Luokong smiled coldly when he heard the words and said mockingly. Cousin, how do you know my mother so much? Could it be because you told my mother personally last night? Heard this sentence, Zan Feng's expression suddenly stagnated, his eyes suddenly became fierce, his voice hoarse and threatening. You actually know. Say, what else do you know? If you don't know what to say today, I will kill you. When the voice fell, the power of the Emperor profound level in his body suddenly rioted, and he blatantly locked Ji Yu Luokong. He is 30 years old this year, and he has reached realm. Although he is not as good as the godchild Zan Xingdust of the Western Sky battlefield, he can also rank in the top 3 among the younger generation in the Western Sky battlefield. So it couldn't be easier for him to kill a Ji Yu Luokong. And at this moment, a mocking voice slowly sounded. As expected, Master Zan Feng from the Western Sky battlefield. First sees Aunt Own, now I want to kill Cousin Own. Tisk tusk. This method really opened my eyes, I admire it. Who is it? Heard a very mocking voice. Zan Feng's face changed, his eyes looked like an aurora and scanned the entire god-martial forest. And at this moment, his eyes suddenly condensed. I saw God in the depths of martial forest. There is a tall figure slowly walking out. He is wearing a cloak that is as dark as night, and the cloak is engraved with dark red magic patterns. His appearance seems to have brought a piece of eternal night. But it happened that those clear eyes that looked like autumn mountain springs had a cold awakening that tore through the darkness. Are you Ling Tien? Zan Feng looked at the visitor with some surprise. Now Ling Tien's reputation is very big in the entire Shenshuan continent. Although he has never seen him before, he has also heard what the legendary young master Ling Tien is like. It's me. Ling Tien smiled and responded calmly. Humph. Zan Feng snorted coldly. Ling Tien, you are so bold. Do you know how you coaxed my son to come to this god-martial forest today? Can my son destroy your Shen's military mansion in one fell swoop? Ha 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 ha. Ling Tien heard the words, laughed very mockingly. Just relying on 8 and 7, you beast. Presumptuous. Zan Feng roared. That terrifying profound energy that belongs to Jun Zan instantly rioted. At this moment, he had already thought of killing someone. When Ling Tien saw this, he nodded to Ji Yu Luokong. However, Ji Yu Luokong hurriedly took out the shadow stone from Na Jia, and immediately urged profound energy to be injected into the shadow stone. Zheng, a light shines. The images and sounds in the shadow stone appeared in Zan Feng's eyes. In an instant, his heart trembled. The influence of the record in this photo stone is exactly the picture of him and the Roy together last night. The picture is extremely clear, even a mole on the back of the Roy can be seen very clearly. Asshole, I killed you. Zan Feng's body shook suddenly, and a handsome face had already turned into a pig's liver color and roared at Ling Tien and Ji Yu Luokong. At the same time, he seemed to have gone mad, and rushed towards Ling Tien. Upon seeing this, Ling Tien condensed his finger and nodded his forehead lightly. Zheng, a dazzling star shines on the center of his eyebrows. The reverse star samsara seal is on. Mysterious reversal. In Ling Tien's eyes, the sword flicked through two world-defying fairy lights. He looked indifferently at Zan Feng who was killing him. Then the corner of the mouth raised a cold arc. World Rebellion, two realms burning God opens. He opened up a tenfold increase in power. A punch came out with an overwhelming power. At this moment, the entire void is trembling. Puffy. Zan Feng was flying out like a broken blood bag before he got close. A bright red arc was drawn across the void and finally fell to the ground fiercely. Then he wrapped his chest and vomited a big mouthful of blood. Zan Feng looked at Ling Tien who was standing quietly on the spot with a gentle smile on his face. His eyes were about to stare out, his face was full of look of disbelief. You, what kind of evildoer are you? I want to say a trick to crush him. Even the son of God Zan Xingdust of the Western Sky battlefield couldn't do it. However, Ling Tien did it. Ling Tien in front of him seemed 10 times more terrifying than the legend. Thought of here, he didn't hesitate to turn around and wanted to escape. But he has not escaped 3 meters. A stunning sword ray lights up. His pupils suddenly shrank, and a barrier of profound strength was condensed to resist. Boom! The sound of the collision of profound strength of the monarch and profound levels sounded. Pincha! The barrier is cracked. His body rubbed the ground and flew 100 feet away. When the camera shifted, he saw that his chest was chopped out like a cracked silk, and there was a bloodstain with deep bones. And a peerless love figure slowly walked out from the direction he just wanted to escape. You are. Zan Feng fell on the ground and his body trembled, and the severe pain was devouring his reason. But when a beautiful figure appeared, and a face of the world came into his eyes still inevitably passed a dullness. The person here is Zheng Weiyang. At this moment, Ling Tien moved. He appeared directly in front of Zan Xingdust in a flash. What do you want? You can't kill me. I have the soul mark of the Western Sky battlefield on my body. If you kill me, the Western Sky battlefield will not let you go. Zan Feng gritted his teeth, his voice trembled and terrified. Ling Tien looked down at Zan Feng and laughed tauntingly. Are you really stupid or fake? If the image in this shadow stone spreads, do you think this son needs to kill you himself? Hearing this, Zon Feng's face trembled, and his face instantly became like a white paper without the slightest blood. Ling Tien is right. If the image in this shadow stone spreads, then the entire profound god continent will know that he has a scandal about Zonfeng and the Roy people. Without Ling Tien's hands, the first one in the Western Sky battlefield will not let him go. Young Master Ling Tien. And this fairy. I Zonfeng, and you have no grievances and no grudges, everything is easy to discuss. If you want anything, just say it straight. Zonfeng is not stupid. He knew if Ling Tien and this mysterious woman wanted to kill him, there is no need to show up at all, and spreading the profound shadow stone directly is enough to make him die 10 times 8 times. Now that they haven't done anything, what they naturally want is not his life. Very knowledgeable, Ling Tien smiled at Zonfeng. Young Master Ling Tien wants what, but it doesn't hurt to say it. Zonfeng's slow tone was full of humble speech. Simple. I want to hide the key to Sword Village Tian's treasure house. I don't know Master Zonfeng, give it or not. Ling Tien said softly. He did not directly ask for the magic crystal cannon from Zonfeng. Because everything is done for this purpose. He wants more than just a magic crystal cannon. What he wants is the entire treasure house of heavenly strategies. After hearing this, Zonfeng took a deep breath and said, Give, of course, it's just that the key to the treasure house is in the hands of the Roy. I don't have it for the time being. Ling Tien nodded, of course he knew this, so he spoke. 3 hours, you will give me the key to the treasure house of Tian's. Otherwise, I will let people from the entire profound continent look at your master Zon Feng's demeanor. Heard this sentence, Zon Feng's face trembled, he plucked up the courage and tried to ask. Then if I give you the key to the treasure house of heavenly strategy, can young Master Ling Tien give me this profound shadow stone? Can. Ling Tien nodded readily. If you give me the key to the treasure house that day, then you can naturally take it away, profound shadow stone. My Ling Tien speaks for words. After hearing this, Zonfeng quietly breathed a sigh of relief. He doesn't care what treasure Ling Tien wants to take away from the treasure house of heavenly strategy. That is a matter of the Tibetan Sword Villa. He only wants the mysterious shadow stone in Ling Tien's hands now. Because his life is all tied to this small stone. In that case, then I will hand over the key to young Master Ling Tien. I hope we can cooperate happily. Zonfeng struggled to get up, then endured the fear in his heart and smiled to Ling Tien. Now start timing. Ling Tien stretched out his hand and patted Zonfeng's shoulder. Hearing these words, he nodded and then glanced at Zhun Weiyang with an indifferent face. Then he turned around and galloped out towards the hidden sword villa. If he gives you the key to the treasure house of heavenly strategy, are you really planning to give him stones of profound shadow? Zhun Weiyang straightened Lu Mei and said, Certainly. Ling Tien nodded and said, I am a man of integrity. Humph. Zhun Weiyang snorted coldly and stopped talking. And Ling Tien can naturally see Zhun Weiyang's dissatisfaction with Own. So he spread out his hands and said a little funny. I don't know what you are angry about. There are 2 mysterious shadow stones. A key to control Zonfeng and let him go to the treasure house of Tian's. 1 piece for Ji Yu Qingshan, the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, in exchange for Zonfeng's life and the chaos of the Tibetan Sword Villa. Why not? Heard this sentence, Zhun Weiyang turned her beautiful eyes and looked at Ling Tien blankly. Only then did he remember that Ling Tien had 2 profound shadow stones in total. Immediately, the corners of her lips curled up with a beautiful smile. It's not bad. To be honest, she didn't like the look in Zonfeng's eyes. Make her sick. And Ling Tien's approach is in line with her wishes. Let's go. We should go to Tibetan Sword Villa. Ling Tien smiled at Zhun Weiyang. Zhun Weiyang nodded. Then the 2 turned into 2 divine lights and galloped in the direction of the hidden sword villa. With the speed of the 2, they arrived at the Tibetan Sword Villa in less than half an hour. Facing the strict guards, Ling Tien stepped on the star god Broken Star and stepped into the hidden sword villa after a few flashes back down. And Zhun Weiyang followed. Her movement technique was also extremely good, 1 step as close to the end of the world. Like Ling Tien, she escaped the eyes of the guards perfectly, and there was not a trace of profound energy fluctuations between the silhouettes. After that, the 2 went down to the battlefield pavilion under the guidance of Ji Yu Luokong. There is a wide view here. With Ling Tien and Jun Weiyang's cultivation base and realm, everything in the Tibetan Sword Villa can be seen in full view. And only the big figures from the Western Sky battlefield are eligible to step in here, so it is safe and the best place to hide and wait for the time. Ji Yu Luokong, you will follow my instructions for a while. When the time comes, I want you to release all the profound shadow stones in front of the top of your hidden sword villa. Ling Tien threw the second mysterious shadow stone into Ji Yu Luokong's hand. In his opinion, the best candidate for this task is Ji Yu Luokong. The slave understands. Ji Yu Luokong nodded and then turned around and disappeared from his field of vision. Honggu is still very curious. What method did you use to turn this Ji Yu Luokong into what it is now? Jun Weiyang looked at Ling Tien with some curiosity and asked in a low voice. Since not being robbed of the soul is not robbing the house, but let Ji Yu Luokong, the noble godson of the dignified hidden sword villa, be as loyal and conscientious as a loyal dog, without two hearts. Even the own mother can calculate, which is really incredible. Ha ha. Ling Tien smiled and did not answer her. In fact, he could just use the soul-catching song to turn Zanfeng into a soul-catching slave of own. However, in the end he gave up. Because Jun Weiyang's true identity is the great realm king Mu Li of the Haoyu King realm, and Mu Wechen's pro-little sister. Although she is on her side now, with the awakening of her Haoyu spirit. Whether Jun Weiyang will still be on his side in the future is still unknown. Therefore, Ling Tien didn't want to expose the trilogy in front of Jun Weiyang. Seeing Ling Tien hasn't answered for a long time. Humph, Jun Weiyang said with a cold snort. Fine. It's not uncommon for my palace to know now. Hush. Ling Tien made a quiet gesture to Jun Weiyang, then he looked into the distance and said. Zanfeng has found the Roy. It seems that the key to Tian's treasury is about to be obtained. The lens is shifting. Zanfeng has come to the Roy's bedroom. The Roy at this time seemed to be resting on the bed because of the fatigue of last night. You little guy is going to die. The Roy looked at Zanfeng in surprise. She thought Zanfeng wanted to continue playing with her. Auntie, you think too much. This time Fenger came, and he hasn't checked the magic crystal cannon yet. Since I have time now, I will check the safety of the demon crystal cannon, so I can go back to work together. Zanfeng endured the beating heart, cheating Roy with a flushed face and a heartbeat. I see. The Roy nodded thoughtfully and then her jade hand flickered lightly. A bronze key appeared directly in her hand. Hey. Here's the key. Go and see for yourself. Auntie will not accompany you. The Roy threw the key to Zanfeng, and gave Zanfeng a coquettish look. Okay, Fenger can go to the treasure house of Tian's by himself. Auntie, please have a good rest. Zanfeng smiled at the Roy. Then turned around and ran towards Zanyu Pavilion. This weird appearance made the Roy frown slightly. But she didn't think too much about it, only that it was the Western Heaven battlefield that put pressure on Zanfeng. Hidden Sword Villa, on the battlefield pavilion. This is the key to the treasure house of Tian's. Zanfeng raised his hand and illuminated the bronze key in front of Ling Tien's eyes. Very good. Ling Tien nodded, and then threw the profound shadow stone in his hand to Zanfeng without hesitation. Take over the Xuanian stone. Zanfeng's hand trembled. And after confirming that the content in the profound shadow stone was indeed what he wanted, he handed over the bronze key of the Tian's treasury to Ling Tien. All right, you can go now. Ling Tien waved his hand and said. Hearing this, Zanfeng looked at Ling Tien suspiciously. He did not expect that Ling Tien would let him go so easily. He thought that at least Ling Tien would force him to take a trip to the treasure house of heavenly strategy. Is this guy not afraid that I will turn around and sell him? Zanfeng murmured in his heart. Anything else? Ling Tien frowned and asked. No. Zanfeng shook his head and then turned to leave. He was considering whether he should tell these things to the people in Tibetan Sword Villa. And at this moment, he suddenly remembered something. Will there be more than one Xuanian stone or there is still a backup? Otherwise, why is Ling Tien so sure that he will not sell him? And just when he was about to go back to Ling Tien to ask questions, a tall figure has come to him. Maple young master. My lord, please go to the main hall. The visitor was Gubei elder from the four largest elder in the southeast, northwest and northwest of the Tibetan Sword Villa. Please me, could it be the Tianyi army mansion again, right? Zan Feng muttered to himself, and then followed Ji Yubei to the main hall. In the main hall at this moment, the atmosphere is unusually dull. Ji Yu Qingshan, the owner of the Hidden Sword Villa, sat on a high position. His face was extremely ugly. It can be said that the whole person exudes a deadly gloomy breath. The gazes of the elder guardians at the Hidden Sword Villa looked at him indescribable. As he came to the main hall, the Roy are here too. She is just as embarrassed as Zan Feng. So, what exactly did you study all night? The Roy frowned and asked in a very unhappy voice. Humph. Ji Yu Qingshan snorted coldly. How did the madam rest last night? The Roy realized that Ji Yu Qingshan's tone was a bit wrong. Ji Yu Qingshan on weekdays treats her respectfully. How dare Yin and Yang ask such strange questions? Could it be? She seemed to have thought of something, subconsciously took a look at Zan Feng. Then she shook her head and said to herself, impossible. What happened last night is impossible for anyone to discover. The battlefield pavilion only allows people from the Western Sky battlefield to enter, so it's very safe. And in her palace, she specially dismissed all the servants in advance. Without her order, no one dared to step into her palace. Besides, she still got down in the palace restrictions. As long as anyone steps into her palace within a kilometer, she can have a gap. Thinking of this, her confidence is full. She said to Ji Yu Qingshan with a cold face. Last night I naturally had a good rest. What do you mean by your husband? Could it be that you think you are Tibetan in the bedroom? This sentence falls. The atmosphere of the entire main hall instantly solidified. And Ji Yu Qingshan's breathing gradually became thicker. Then, with a sullen face, he directly took out a black shadow stone. The moment I saw this mysterious shadow again, Zan Feng's face suddenly turned pale. The cold sweat behind me is coming. Tibetan. Ha 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 ha. What an euphemism, madam said. Ji Yu Qingshan gritted his teeth and looked at the Roy, and said. The owner of this village never expected it. Madam is so good at playing. And still with my own nephew. Really have a long experience. After all, he suddenly crushed the profound shadow stone. Zheng, light up above a mysterious shadow. Everyone saw Zan Feng and Roy embracing each other. The Roy called Fenger affectionately. And Zan Feng also responded with a loud ant. The whole picture is extremely unsightly. At this moment, even Zan Feng's guardian Ming Lao frowned. And look at Zan Feng and the Roy. At this moment, the faces of the two of them turned red like pig liver. Ji Yu Qingshan watched the scenes in the picture, and his heart surged. Puffy, spit out a mouthful of blood. He pointed trembling fingers at Zan Feng and Roy hoarsely. Brute, today, Ji Yu Qingshan will not let you go when I die. Come on, take this couple of dogs and men for me. His words fall. The entire Tibetan sword villa blasted the pot directly. Sir, boss, even if the wife is at fault, you are also a husband and wife. That's right, the husband and wife will have 100 days of grace in one day, please don't kill the owner. 10,000 steps back and said, even if the master is confused for a day, but she is also the 9 princesses of the Western Sky battlefield, the owner should still be cautious. Also ask the owner to take it back. When the owner of Tibetan Sword Villa gave the order, the situation did not completely fall to Ji Yu Qingshan as everyone expected. Among the 18 elders in the Hidden Sword Villa, 10 of them have quietly stood behind the Roy. Nearly half of the 24 Tibetan Sword Guardians stood with the Roy. You are competing, traitor. Ji Yu Qingshan's eyes stared at the Tibetan Sword Villa, and nearly half walked to the Roy-like Tibetan Sword Powerhouse. He didn't expect these people to have already taken refuge in the Roy in secret. You know that the big vote of power standing behind the Roy is half the country of the Tibetan Sword Villa. Humph. Roy snorted coldly. Where did the traitor come from? Ji Yu Qingshan, you have to figure it out. Who is it that you can sit as the owner of this Tibetan Sword Villa? They just made a wise choice. Furthermore, I just made a mistake that a woman would make. But you don't even think about the kindness of husband and wife for many years, and you want to kill them all. In that case, I will cut off your kindness today. To shut up. You mean woman. Ji Yu Qingshan's eyes were blood red, like an evil ghost, looking at the Roy. At this moment, he almost broke his teeth. Over the years, he thinks he is obedient to the Roy people, and he loves them. But he never expected that the Roy would treat him so unrelentingly. Now he still has the face to say that he just made a mistake that a woman would make. It's nonsense. Not only that, the Roy people actually wanted to grab his position as the owner of the Hidden Sword Villa. Whether it is tolerable or unbearable. WN. The Tibetan swordsman will listen to the order. Today, no matter what the price is paid, the Roy will be taken to me. Yu Qingshan roared. The profound strength of the real sky profound realm in his body suddenly exploded. Boom. In an instant, the terrifying profound strength of the sky profound realm is like a storm, sweeping out in all directions with Yu Qingshan as the center. The cracks like a spider web spread from under his feet toward the distance. The entire Tibetan sword villa began to tremble violently like an earthquake. Above the sky, dark clouds descended, lightning and thunder. Countless people stared in horror at Yu Qingshan, who was able to create such a mighty power by just rioting profound strength. Astonished in his heart, is this the power of the profound sky power? Old Ming, please, Zan Feng said to the old man beside him with a sullen face. Young master, the old man knows. Old Ming nodded, and then stood in front of Zan Feng and Roy. His withered palms slowly clenched fists. Boom, another burst of power from the profound sky realm. This strength is not lost to Yu Qingshan, the owner of the Tibetan sword villa. Owner Yu, stop. Old Ming said in a low voice. Today, no one can get out of the hidden sword villa. Yu Qingshan's eyes were bloody. It is undoubtedly the most intolerable for own wife to have an affair with other men. And when the Roy asked for his position as the master of the Tibetan sword, the last trace of reason in his mind collapsed. Therefore, no one can stop him. Oh, since it is so old, I will fight with the owner. Old Ming sighed and said. As soon as the sound of his words fell, a cold light flashed in his muddy eyes. The figure flickered, and he directly killed Yu Qingshan. Kill. Yu Qingshan gave a low cry like a wounded beast. A quaint bronze sword appeared in his hand. The profound strength of the profound sky burst out, swept across with one sword. Boom, boom, boom. The power of two realms collided. It's as if two comets collided together. A storm of profound strength of thousands of meters swept from the center of the two people's battle to the surroundings. The hidden sword main hall was moved to the ground in an instant. The people present rioted with profound strength and escaped from the main hall. The two went back 100 feet in the first match. No one took advantage, and Yu Qingshan roared. Various generals of the hidden swords, today, side by side with the owner of the village, slay the traitors. Hearing that, the loyalty behind him, his hidden sword, elder, and the guardian are all fierce. One after another rushed towards the Roy side to kill. Never mind, today I will fight you to the end. Up to now, the Roy people didn't care, and completely let go. The strong hidden sword behind her draws his sword to fight. The camera shifted, and the forces of the hidden sword villa split into two torrents and generally collided together. All of a sudden, the entire Tibetan sword villa became murderous, profound energy flying, and the situation turned into a pot of porridge. And just at the time of the chaos in the Tibetan sword villa, Ling Tien and Jun Weiyang have arrived in front of the back mountain forbidden area of the Tibetan sword villa. There is a huge and ancient bronze door in front of them. Obviously this is the treasure house of the hidden sword villa. What they want is behind the bronze door. Found it. Ling Tien looked at the bronze door in front of him and smiled slightly. It seems that your plan has succeeded. Jun Weiyang looked from a distance at the Tibetan sword villa, which was in chaos behind him, and said interestingly. The success of the plan is sure. But I didn't expect to make the Tibetan sword villa chaotic like this. Ling Tien spread his hands and said. The most intolerable thing for men in the world is to be betrayed by the woman they love the most. What's more, it is Yu Qingshan, a high-powered figure who owns the cultivation base of the profound sky. He asked Yu Luokong to go to Yu Qingshan personally to expose the Roy and Zan Feng. Then used the mysterious shadow stone that clearly recorded the two people's affair as evidence, perfectly presented before his eyes. Not to mention Yu Qingshan, the owner of the Tibetan sword villa. Anyone who is a little bit bloody will see the two fierce battles between Zanfeng and Roy in this profound shadow stone. They will definitely surge blood chi, money jiao, angrily want to kill people. Alright, let's quickly open the treasure house of Tian's. Ling Tien reminded Jun Weiyang. Zheng Weiyang nodded and then handed a bronze key to Ling Tien. And Ling Tien took the key and walked to the bronze door. His eyes locked on the keyhole in the center of the bronze door. Then insert the key and twist it slowly. Clank, clank, clank. At this moment, the sound of mechanical rotation can be heard in the bronze door. After a few breaths, the sound of machinery stopped. Taste. The bronze door moved. Upon seeing this, Ling Tien hurriedly stepped back and stood with Zheng Weiyang. The two of them stared tightly at the slowly opening bronze door. Strands of brilliant light overflowed from the bronze door. When the bronze door is fully opened, Ling Tien and Zheng Weiyang looked at each other with a smile and immediately walked into the bronze gate together. Behind the bronze door, it's a bronze temple. 9 pillars like a winding dragon stood on both sides. There is no illuminating crystal lamp here, because I don't need it at all. Ling Tien and Zheng Weiyang stood together staring at the dazzling light in front of them. This is the strange light released by the overlapping of countless dizzying rare treasures. Purple profound crystal. It's not as many as imagined here. It's just 5 hills stacked together randomly. Ling Tien visually observed that there were probably 100 million purple profound crystals here. But Ling Tien saw the dragon pattern black crystal that is countless times more precious than the purple profound crystal. 10 pieces of black gold with dragon patterns overlap each other, which looks pleasing to the eye. Not only that, Ling Tien actually saw a piece of phoenix blood crimson crystal. In terms of value, the value of the phoenix blood crimson crystal must be higher than the dragon pattern black gold, because it contains a strand of divine phoenix true blood. If you swallow them all, my son's cultivation base realm must have an unexpectedly huge increase. Ling Tien smiled, and then with a wave of unceremonious palms, he directly collected the black gold of dragon pattern, the red gold of phoenix blood, and the 100 million purple profound crystal into the ring. And when he turned his gaze to Zheng Weiyang inadvertently, he found that the woman frowned her eyebrows looking for something in the rare herbs on the ground. At this time, Zheng Weiyang's beautiful eyes lit up. After, I found a strange purple flower in a hidden corner. This is eternal violet, Ling Tien muttered to himself somewhat surprised. Everlasting violet is a very precious flower. Serving on violet petals can catalyze the evolution of spirits. Now Ling Tien understands. The purpose of Zheng Weiyang's life and death to come to this hidden sword villa is for this eternal violet. This sacred flower can catalyze the rapid awakening of Zheng Weiyang's soul. As long as the soul awakens, then her cultivation base will continue to rise. But her personality will change again. But he said that after Zheng Weiyang took the eternal violet into the ring, she turned her head slightly to look at Ling Tien, who was staring at him, and asked, "What are you looking at?" "I found what I wanted." "Where is the magic crystal cannon you want?" Upon hearing this, Ling Tien suddenly reacted. Then he looked into the depths of the temple. He could perceive an extremely dangerous aura there. "There," Zheng Weiyang said in a low voice. Ling Tien nodded and then walked towards the depths of the temple. Sure enough, to the depths of the temple, he saw a strange profound formation emitting black light. The surroundings of the profound arc are covered with mysterious and ancient god patterns. This is the magic crystal cannon. Ling Tien was stunned. He once again confirmed that the terrifying aura originated from this profound formation. Then he slowly walked into the profound formation. The profound formation actually started to move. Those strange god patterns kept turning around Ling Tien's side. In the end, the profound formation turned into a dazzling light and poured directly into Ling Tien's left arm. A feeling of scorching heat came. Ling Tien glanced sideways. There is a 5-color star tattoo on his left arm. This is really the legendary magic crystal cannon. Ling Tien endured the throbbing of his heart and tried to stimulate profound energy. When the profound energy poured into his left arm, he saw the stars of his left arm soar. In the palm of his left hand appeared a 5-color starburst profound formation that was slowly rotating. At the same time, a strange aura that destroys the world is released. If he remembers correctly, this magic crystal cannon needs to use purple profound crystal for kinetic energy to activate. So the 100 million purple profound crystals in this temple are used as the kinetic energy of this magic crystal cannon. Ling Tien said in surprise. It takes at least 100 million purple profound crystals to make the original kinetic energy for a shot. This seems a bit extravagant. But this also shows how powerful the magic crystal cannon can be once it is activated. And at this moment, an extremely dazzling mysterious light on the soles of Ling Tien's feet rose to the sky. It actually penetrated the entire bronze temple directly. Biff, suck. Ling Tien yelled badly. If he guessed right. This light should be the restriction specially set by the Roy for the magic crystal cannon. The reason is for someone to steal the magic crystal cannon from the treasure house of the sky strategy. This light broke through the bronze temple, which is equivalent to telling everyone in the Tibetan sword villa that someone has entered the treasure house of heavenly strategy. Since they have found out, we probably won't be able to escape silently. Jun Weiyang said in a calm voice. Yes. Ling Tien nodded and looked at Jun Weiyang. The two said in unison. In that case, how much you can get. Having said that, the two of them have begun a crazy sweep of the treasure house of Tien's in a tacit understanding. No matter what kind of divine sword, mystery, or medicine pill, as long as they fall into the eyes of the two, they will all be thrown into the ring. The other side. The civil unrest in Kangjian Villa intensified. Both parties have a real fire. In the blood splattering, the disciples of the Hidden Sword Villa continue to fall down. And at this moment, a light from the heavens shines. Attracted everyone's attention in an instant. There is a treasure house of heavenly strategy. The owner of the Hidden Sword Villa blasted away Ming Lao's eyebrows, looking at the direction of the divine light, and muttered. No, someone is going to steal the demon crystal cannon. Roy's face changed, and he shouted out. On the side, Zhan Feng clenched his fists with a gloomy expression. If things can evolve to this point, Ling Tien is behind the scenes. Fenger, let's go to the treasure house of Tien's. You can throw anything, the magic crystal cannon is not good. The Roy gritted his teeth and whispered. Good. Zhan Feng nodded and waved to Ming Lao. Above the void, the profound sky battle stopped. Ji Yu Qingshan's expression is also uncertain. In today's civil war, the foundation of his Hidden Sword Villa has been damaged. If the treasure house of Tien's with more than half of the Hidden Sword Villa's heritage is looted again, then the Hidden Sword Villa was really ruined. So he rushed to the treasure house of Tien's with a sullen face and a kind of power. Of course, although the two parties have temporarily ceased the war, they are still wary of the fact that each other cannot truly be the same enemy. When the strong hidden swords arrived at the treasure house of heavenly strategy, I saw two figures walking out without panic. See someone. Roy's pupil shrinks. That day, the image of kneeling and apologizing in the heavenly dome hall of the martial emperor's palace came to mind again. Her beautiful face suddenly became hideous, and she spoke with a hoarse voice. Ling Tien, it turned out to be you. Mrs. Luo hasn't seen you for a few days. Unexpectedly, your style is even better than before. Ling Tien looked at the own Roy and smiled slightly while looking at his face full of murderous intent. Hearing that, Roy's expression has changed slightly. How can she not hear the ridicule in Ling Tien's words? At this moment, she suddenly reacted with a very bitter voice. Dao. It's you. You were the one who left the profound shadow stone in the battlefield pavilion last night. Ha ha. Ling Tien didn't deny it, just shrugged and smiled. Since Mrs. Luo dared to do wicked things, so why are you afraid of being exposed by others? The owner of Tang Tang Hidden Sword Villa is so big that you wear a green hat, don't you feel guilty? My son thinks you should kneel down and apologize to your husband again. It's not your first time anyway, is it? To shut up. It's not your turn to speak here. Ji Yu Qingshan let out a low growl. What his wife Roy did, he knew at the moment. But he still can't tolerate Ling Tien this junior speaking in front of so many people, and then pick up his bloody scar. Looking at Ji Yu Qingshan, who was almost on the verge of running away, the smile on Ling Tien's face became even stronger. It looks like, my lord does not intend to forgive you, Mrs. Luo. But that's the case. After all, your peerless appearance in the profound shadow stone has been thoroughly seen by so many people. Who would want a slut in the entire profound god continent? Am I right? Heard these words, Roy's popular body trembled. She yelled at Ling Tien. Ling Tien, today this seat will cramp you and smash your corpse into thousands of pieces. Zhan Feng nodded heavily and said, Ming Lao, give me the Hidden Sword Villa. From now on no one is allowed to go out. Since childhood, Ling Tien alone dared to play with the palm of his hand in this way. At this moment, No one except Roy wanted to watch Ling Tien die more than him. He knew how strong Ling Tien was, so he asked Ming Lao to cut off Ling Tien's retreat in advance. Clear. Ming Lao nodded and then raised his hand. A huge barrier covered with the power of the profound sky was covered in the Tibetan sword villa like a bowl. Not only Ming Lao, even Ji Yu Qingshan also used his own profound strength to put a heavenly barrier on the Tibetan sword villa as a precaution. Upon seeing this, Zhang Weiyang's pretty face changed slightly and said in a low voice, "The heaven and earth nets laid by the two profound sky experts. Can you break it?" Ling Tien pondered for a moment and then spoke. "Just try it, but you have to do your best for a while. This battle is about my life and death. It's also about your fame." "My name." Zhang Weiyang looked at Ling Tien with a look of confusion. "You're so dumb. The Roy hate me so much. If we lose, she will definitely break me into pieces. And you might be stripped naked by her and given to Zan Feng." Ling Tien reminded Zhang Weiyang half-jokingly to shut up. When Zhang Weiyang heard this, his face changed and he scolded. Although she knew Ling Tien was joking, but it is undeniable that the situation mentioned by Ling Tien is very likely to happen. At this moment, her expression was awkward, and two bright moonlights lit up in a pair of beautiful eyes. "I can't help myself. I want to resist. The strong men above Zhongshuan gathered to kill them for me." Roy's face was hunting. She is very clear about the rumors of Ling Tien's combat power. Therefore, then she naturally does not need to send the strong under the sovereign profound realm to waste resources. After all, the battle at the sovereign profound level, the Saint Realm powerhouse could not get involved at all. "Master, shall we go too?" Bei Elder behind Ji Yu Qingshan asked in a low voice. "No need. The magic crystal cannon is in Ling Tien's hands. The Roy will never let Ling Tien go. But in the legend, Ling Tien's combat power is very strong, and you can use the Holy Realm cultivation base to kill the strong monarch. We might as well wait for the last minute to make a move." Ji Yu Qingshan replied with a gloomy expression. "Today, Ling Tien will not let it go, and the Roy will not let it go. War, war, war." Ling Tien looked at more than 24 powerful men and women who came to kill him. He raised his hand and touched his eyebrow lightly. Zheng, a bright star light up. The reverse star Samsara is printed. Mysterious reversal. Two world-defying fairy lights bloomed in his eyes. And Zhang Weiyang on the side shrouded the divine light of the moon. Yu hand holds a gorgeous moon blade. The whole person is shrouded in the hazy moon shadow, as illusory and flawless as a fairy goddess. And the aura all over her body is even more fierce. Ling Tien and Zhang Weiyang looked at each other. Then it turned into two divine lights and directly fought with more than 12 strong masters of the Tibetan sword villa. "Drink." Ling Tien gave a cold drink. "World Rebellion 2 Realms Burning God opens. Let's test the sledgehammer with a tenfold increase in critical strike first." He raised his fist. With the force of crushing the heavenly palace, he blasted towards a Tibetan sword elder guardian of the first stage of the sovereign profound realm. "You." The hidden sword protector looked at this fist that seemed to be able to crush all the fans. He was shocked and tried his best to fight. "But after all, it's not low." "Puffy." The hidden sword protector yelled, and the body and the sharp sword in his hand shattered together, and the red blood and broken bones flew together. There was a mournful rain of blood in the void. Punch. Just a punch. Ling Tien shattered the body of a strong monarch. And Zhang Weiyang on the other side, sword chi sweeps across the room, moon shadow spots. With a twist of her jade hand and wrist, the sword's edge drew a very strange arc, directly splitting the body of a hidden sword elder in half. Even though the scarlet blood swayed the sky, a drop of his moon skirt was not dyed. What kind of evil are these two people? The strong man of the Tibetan sword villa present looked at Ling Tien and Zhang Weiyang, who had killed the two strong monarchs in a snap. At this time, the battle continues. But the situation seems a bit one-sided. Ling Tien, who has turned on the reversal of Samsara Yin Zongong, has a level of power that does not lose to realm. Coupled with the increase in critical strikes in the second realm, he is like a peerless killer in the siege of a group of powerful monarchs. 10 times the critical strike to kill the guardian of the Emperor Profound Realm. 20 times the violent blow to kill the guardian of the 3 realms of Sovereign Profound. 30 times the critical strike smashed Elder's body in the 5th realm of Emperor Profound Realm. Boom, boom, boom. Ling Tien's 3 punches, blasting and killing 3 monarchs in a row. The rain of blood floated in the sky, and the air was full of blood and fear. This person is likely to be invincible. Please also 2 big elders. A guardian of the second realm of sovereign and profound realm looked at Ji Yunan standing next to Roy with a look of horror, and the 2 elders of Ji Yu Shi asked for help. And at this moment, he suddenly felt a shadow over him. Before I had time to turn around, everyone saw Ling Tien grabbing the guardian's head with one hand. The world is defying the power of God is fully turned on. Clank, clank, clank. Between a few breaths, the guardian of the second realm of sovereign and profound realm's hair has become flowery. The vitality of his whole person was cleaned by Ling Tien. At the same time, the energy of the entire world is converging towards Ling Tien. Evildoer, devil, could this guy be Devil Dao who cultivated, right? What kind of overbearing cultivation technique is this, that actually extracts the vitality of a person? At this moment, the entire Tibetan sword villa looked at Ling Tien as if they were looking at an invincible demon lord. At this moment, Ling Tien's cloak of night is not stained with dust. Even though the rain of blood was floating in the sky, no drop fell on him. He holds his hands and his face is calm, as if everything just now has nothing to do with him. And Zhen Weiyang also returned to Ling Tien's side. She, like Ling Tien, killed several Zhen Zan. The expression is indifferent, and the gorgeous moon blade in his hand is still clear and transparent, without a drop of blood. Looking at Ling Tien and Zhen Weiyang like this, the countless disciples of the Tibetan sword villa present all swallowed subconsciously. A chill rushes from the soles of the feet to the heavens. These are 2 peerless killing gods. Looking at the young generation, what is the so-called godson and goddess of the younger generation? This is simply not worthy of lifting shoes for 2 people. It seems I have to trouble Ji Yunan. Ji Yu Zai's 2 Tibetan sword master elders have taken action. The Roy nodded to Nancy's 2 elders and whispered, "Madam, don't worry, the 2 of us will do our best to kill this kid." Ji Yunan nodded to the Roy. He in the west, August 10, elder or the big elder of the Tibetan sword villa. Both of them have the power of the peak of Emperor Zan. Although they were also horrified by Ling Tien's terrifying combat power. But they never believed in their hearts, Ling Tien could really fight them against the 2. What should I do now? 2 sovereign profound peaks. I can barely contend with 1, how about you? Zhen Weiyang's pretty face was full of solemn and whispered voice to Ling Tien. Listen to you, the next step is critical. When we fight with these 2 old men in a while, I will take the opportunity to break the profound sky barrier that is shrouded in hidden sword villa. When the time comes, you don't care about anything, you just need to escape with all your strength. Have you understood? Ling Tien responded very seriously. Can you break through the profound strength barriers of the 2 profound sky experts? A touch of shock passed in Zhen Weiyang's eyes. Then she suddenly remembered the scene where Ling Tien had various visions in Wudu at that time, and she was shattered into the void. In an instant she understood. It looks like this guy is going to show his whole cards. Zhen Weiyang muttered to himself. There is no doubt that if Ling Tien displays that one that shocked the entire profound god continent, then the profound strength barrier of this strong sky profound practitioner would not be able to stop them. But in fact she guessed wrong. Ling Tien really didn't intend to use the inverse chaos. Rebellious chaos is indeed terrifying. But now you must know that he doesn't have the cold protection right now. If you are finished with all the anti-chaos, both his profound strength and mental energy will be emptied in an instant. At that time, Ling Tien will be at the mercy of others. So when he is not a last resort, he will not use the last hole cards. All right, get ready. Ling Tien spoke softly to Zhen Weiyang. Zhen Weiyang let out a deep breath and the sword's edge turned, and pointed directly at the 2 elders of the Tibetan sword at the peak of the Emperor Zan. You little lovers are the most talented and enchanting young people you have ever seen. Ji Yunan said in admiration with his hands folded. It's just a pity that both will fall today again. A sneer appeared on Ji Yu Zai's face. Ha ha. Ling Tien heard this, he said unceremoniously. You 2 are also the strongest monarchs I've seen. The most nonsense. Presumptuous. Ji Yunan and Ji Yushi have straight eyebrows. 2 terrifying Zhongshuan peak auras burst out and swept towards Ling Tien and Zhen Weiyang. Kill. Battle of Ling Tien. With a flash of light in his hand, a divine sword ignited with black gas against the peerless light. The oracle knife is out. The world is silent. Wang Jian uttered a scream of fear. At this moment, Ling Tien indifferently locked on Ji Yunan and then slowly whispered. Heaven-defying 7 magic knives, heaven-defying method, change the destiny of heaven. The moment the sound fell, the entire sky suddenly dimmed. Ling Tien's figure became a little floating. 7 tall magical shadows appeared behind him. What is this? Standing at a distance of 100 meters from Ling Tien, Ji Yunan looked at the demon shadow surrounding Ling Tien with a horrified face, and a bad premonition appeared in his heart. This is something beyond your understanding. Ling Tien sneered. The 7 magic shadows began to revolve and finally issued a sky-shaking roar and rushed to Ling Tien's body. Boom! At this moment, the demon flame above the oracle knife is overwhelming. Without any hesitation, Ling Tien raised his hand to face Ji Yunan and slashed 6 times. Clank, 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 clank. Extremely violent energy is in the sky and the earth. The invisible anger swept around. Drink, sword barrier. Ji Yunan roared his profound strength and condensed 10,000 swords in front of him. Boom! The deafening sound of a profound force collision sounded. The entire Tibetan sword villa is being pulled by 2 destructive energies. There are ripples in the void. The cobweb-like crack extended from the surface to most of the hidden sword villa. Everyone has no doubt, if there is no profound sky barrier, these 6 swords can destroy half of the hidden sword villa. During the shift of the camera, Ji Yunan's sword barrier has been chopped by Ling Tien's 6 swords. At the same time, on his right arm there is a bloodstain that can be seen deep in the bone. He, the strong man at the peak of Junzan, was actually hurt. And at this moment, in the darkness where Ling Tien stood, 2 touches of scarlet light up. An extremely bad premonition descended on everyone. 7th knife. The magic flame of the oracle knife Ling Tien is holding soars. With a twist of his wrist, he cut it out with a single knife, and the world was dark. This knife is dazzling, and it directly slashed at Ji Yunan with a heaven-defying power that everyone could not even imagine. Forehead. Ji Yunan roared. The profound energy from the peak of the Emperor Zan burst out, but instantly annihilated under that terrifying sword light. The whole person fell apart in an instant. The stump and broken arm fell to the ground. Hidden sword villa elder Ji Yunanyu. Everyone suddenly exclaimed. Zhun Weiyang also stared at Ling Tien, who killed Ji Yunan with a single knife. There was no reaction in my mind for a while. Didn't it mean that you took the opportunity to break the barrier during the battle? How did you kill someone with a single knife? And at this moment, Ling Tien came to Zhun Weiyang's body in a flash. And when Ji Yushi saw Ling Tien, he suddenly flew up to 100 feet as if he had seen a ghost. He is deeply afraid of Ling Tien's tricks, and he will be second. Call. Ling Tien gasped and said. Next. Ready to run. Run. How to run? Zhun Weiyang looked confused. The barrier of the profound expert on this day has not been broken. She can't go anywhere. And at this moment, I saw Ling Tien put away the oracle knife. Spread your hands. Clank, clank, clank. 3 flames appeared in front of everyone. Azure Blue releases this terrifying ice-pressured extreme cold ice phoenix flame. Beautiful and destructive galaxy cluster Qian. Crimson with healing power Nirvana holy flame. Appear in front of 3 kinds of flames. There was an extremely abnormal distortion in the entire void. Even the profound sky barrier set by the 2 profound sky experts, Minglao and Ji Yu Qingshan, has already begun to smoke. This is. Zhun Weiyang's small mouth is slightly opened, his eyes are shining. 3 kinds of sacred flames exist in one. She doesn't know how many surprises Ling Tien will bring to her. At this moment, both Minglao and Ji Yu Qingshan realized what Ling Tien wanted to do. Want to run? Never possible. With me, you can't take away the things from the treasure house of Tians. The 2 Tianshuan finally let go of their vigilance towards each other. Just when the 2 were ready to join forces to take down Ling Tien, they stopped abruptly. Ling Tien, don't you want to do what I think? Zhun Weiyang's pupils shook violently, and the extremely delicate and beautiful face was full of shock. You were right. Ling Tien smiled slightly, and then suddenly softened the 3 kinds of flames together. At this moment, the temperature of the entire world suddenly increased by dozens of degrees. The huge hidden sword villa is like a purgatory of fire. Different degrees of flushing appeared on everyone's face. Seeing Ling Tien's crazy behavior, Ji Qingshan and Ming Lao looked at each other and said two words in unison. Madman, is he trying to fuse the three kinds of flames together? The people of the Tibetan sword villa stared at Ling Tien's behavior and couldn't help screaming. As we all know, the attribute of flame is violent. The two different flames are totally incompatible, and it is impossible for them to exist together at the same time. But Ling Tien not only achieves that one person has three kinds of flames at the same time. He still wants to merge these three kinds of flames into one. The crazy scene in front of me shocked everyone. He is looking for death again. Ming Lao looked at Ling Tien with a gloomy face and said in a low voice that the three flames that rose up like boiling water and were repelling each other with bursts of muffled thunder. Does he think he can really fuse the three kinds of flames? If you act like this heaven-defying, you will be condemned by the heavens. Ji Qingshan also said coldly. There is no doubt that Ling Tien bought three kinds of flames just like three unstable bombs. If you want to force the integration, then the final result must be backlashed. Can this guy work? Zheng Weiyang's jade hand clenched his fist tightly and his beautiful eyes stared at Ling Tien, who is now fully grasping the balance of the three flames with his hands folded and his eyes closed. Although reason told her, what Ling Tien did was absolutely impossible to accomplish. But for some reason, she had a faint expectation in her heart. She felt that Ling Tien seemed to be able to succeed. When everyone's minds were different, the temperature of the world had gradually risen to an extremely terrifying point. Ling Tien suddenly opened his eyes and shouted in a low voice. It's now. At this moment, his spirit can be described as highly concentrated. The various techniques and methods of the Buddha's fury lotus fusing the three flames in my mind. Afterwards, his fingers moved wildly in the three mutually exclusive flames as if they were plucking flowers and piercing leaves. At the same time, the profound energy in the body is poured into it crazily. Finally, under Ling Tien's efforts, those three mutually exclusive flames seemed to have reached an equilibrium point. The flames gradually calmed down as if a river merged into the sea, and they really merged together. A red ice fire lotus blooming with the light of the bright galaxy cluster appeared in Ling Tien's palm. This red ice and fire lotus exudes an extremely cold breath, but it contains a completely opposite violent temperature. The strange combination of ice and fire is incredible. Not only that, this red ice lotus also blooms with the extremely bright light of the galaxy cluster. At a glance, it seems that you can see the broken scene of the galaxy cluster. It is beautiful and has the power of destruction that makes the soul tremble. Even, faintly, I can still hear the voice of Phoenix Nirvana. Nirvana and destruction are also in one body. There is no doubt that this fire lotus is extremely beautiful, and the bright light is flowing. The whole world seems to have become its background. But when the wisps of frightening breath floated from it, everyone's pupils shrank suddenly, their faces instantly became pale, and their footsteps kept moving backwards. The cultivators present have only one idea, and that is to escape. The farther you escape, the better. Everyone can perceive what the consequences would be if the fire lotus in Ling Tien's hands exploded. At this moment, the mysterious barrier of the day was not a barrier for them to prevent Ling Tien and Zheng Weiyang from escaping. It's the biggest obstacle to their escape at this time. Finally succeeded. Ling Tien's complexion was slightly pale, looking at the chibbing fire lotus quietly lying on the palm of his hand, whispered. Arctic ice phoenix flame, galaxy cluster red flame, nirvana sacred flame. The fire lotus created by the fusion of these three kinds of flames. It looks like a scarlet star that can destroy the world. So this fire lotus should be called the scarlet ice star. Thinking of this, Ling Tien pulled up a tired smile at the corner of his mouth. And when this fatigue hits my heart, there was a glimmer of clarity in his eyes. Immediately afterwards, his eyes were fixed on Ji Qingshan and Ming Lao and immediately used the fire lotus in their hands. This contains the polarities of ice and fire, and the fire lotus that blooms the light of the galaxy cluster slashed across the sky with a phoenix sound and swiftly shot towards the two great heavens. Ji Qingshan and Ming Lao, the owner of the Tibetan sword villa, looked at the fire lotus galloping towards them at the same time, their complexions suddenly changed and shouted. At this time, the two of them were working at the same time with the power of the profound sky, and each condensed an airtight protective shield in front of their own. This is not over yet, they are still frantically infusing the power of the profound sky into the protective cover. Burst. Ling Tien watched as the fire lotus fell within 10 meters of the two profound sky experts. He opened his mouth. Followed by an uncontrolled explosion resounded across the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Destructive energy spread out from the void. The scarlet light instantly enveloped the entire world. The ripples of the explosion swept across the sky and destroyed the profound sky barrier of the two profound sky experts directly. At the same time, the hidden sword villa erupted out of a flame ice storm that seemed to be able to connect the heavens and the earth. Destructive energy is sweeping towards the surroundings at the same time like a wave. Where the energy passed, the pavilions of the building were frozen into ice in an instant, and then the flames burst into ashes. The mountain peaks soaring into the clouds were suddenly broken by the scarlet light, and the broken places seemed as smooth as the sword of the sky. Jun Weiyang stared blankly at the scene in front of him that seemed to be annihilating. Her red lips are slightly open, and her beautiful face is full of horror. And at this moment, Ling Tien came to her side, and he endured the bursts of fatigue and said to her angrily, "Why are you still in a daze? Hurry up." Jun Weiyang suddenly reacted. Then he hurriedly called out the profound arc and jumped up with Ling Tien into a divine light, breaking the brilliant fire light in front of him and galloping into the distance. She stood on the profound arc, looking at the brilliant fire that swept the blue sky and finally turned into a mushroom cloud rising again. She couldn't help being speechless for a while. "Ling Tien, are you still a human? Profound sky expert, can you kill it too?" Jun Weiyang looked at Ling Tien who collapsed on the bed of the profound arc and asked Ling Tien in surprise. In her eyes, Ling Tien just hit two profound sky in a single move. Hearing this, Ling Tien glanced at her angrily and spoke with a dignified tone. "What are you thinking? Where is the profound sky expert so easy to kill? And these two are not ordinary profound sky experts. The scarlet ice star he condensed just now may really kill the powerhouse of the profound sky elementary realm. However, whether it is Jiyu Qingshan or Ming Lao, their realm is at least between the three realms of the profound sky and the four realms. So although Fei Shi Bingxing is strong, these two superpowers can't admit that the probability is still very small." After all, Ling Tien hurriedly sat up and opened the system mall and spent 1,000 life points to directly purchase 2 drops of life water suit. At the same time, the power of the gods is full, madly absorbing the power of the heavens and the earth, and recovering their own power as quickly as possible. If Jiyu Qingshan and Ming Lao are not dead, then they will definitely not let On and see Jun Weiyang. Thought of here, Ling Tien touched On ring. At this time, there is still a Buddha-angered Tanglian in his Sati ring. Because I bought it in limited quantities at the time. Therefore, Ling Tien believes that the power of this Buddha-angered Tanglian should be far greater than imagined. Even if it's not as good as the Fei Shi Tian Xing created by the Buddha's Fury Lotus just now. But at least it can be unexpected. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.